Back to the budget.
Oh, goody.
No, we got the 7 o'clock public hearing for the
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
the second.
home rule charter.
See.
Or home
7
rule charter.
o'clock.
Homework charter?
Oh, yeah. 9C. 9C. Hold on, I gotta get that to you.
Let's see.
Bless you. What are you looking for? Not the actual charter.
I got this, I just needed to get an email to you for proposed amendments. All right, so at this time, we're going to have the public hearing. The reason for the public hearing is to discuss 3 proposed enhancements to the Home Rule Charter. Council members are O'Connor, Federici, Ford, Manley, Anderson, Hill, and Kane. At this time, we'll have the clerk read the notice into the record.
The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on April 24, 2018 at 7 p.m. in the auditorium of the Council on Aging located at 328 North Main Street to address 3 proposed enhancements to the Home Rule Charter. Information related to these charter amendments are on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public. For the council, Thomas Lawrence, clerk of the council.
And so the proposed enhancements are Article 2, Town Council, Section 2, eligibility, page 5 of the charter currently reads, at the first council meeting on or after July 1, the council shall choose from its membership a president and vice president, each to serve for a 1-year term of office. The proposed enhancement or amendment here would be at the first council meeting on or after July 1st. The council shall choose from a full council a president and vice president, each to serve for a 1-year term of office. The summary here is replacing its membership with full council. The definition of full council in the charter shall mean the entire authorized complement of the town council, notwithstanding any vacancy which might exist. Article 2, Town Council, Section 6, Town Bylaws, page 6 and 7 of the charter currently reads, proposed bylaws shall address one subject only and shall be introduced in writing in the form necessary for final adoption. Any proposed bylaw shall be published in a local newspaper, on the town bulletin board, and on the town's website or other official online repository of municipal information, whether on the internet or accessed through another comparable technology, not less than 7 days prior to its second reading, except for emergency bylaws. The proposed amendment would be the proposed bylaws shall address one subject only, shall be introduced in writing in the form necessary for final adoption. Any proposed bylaw shall be published in a local newspaper, provided, however, that whenever a proposed bylaw or other measure would exceed in length more than 10 column inches of ordinary newspaper notice print, then in lieu of publication, local newspaper of the entire length of the proposed bylaw, a reasonable synopsis may be published. The proposed bylaw shall also be available in the office of the town clerk, on the town bulletin board, and on the town's website or other official online repository of municipal information, whether on the internet or accessed through another comparable technology, not less than 7 days prior to its second reading, except for emergency bylaws. This proposed change would significantly reduce the cost of publishing an entire new proposed bylaw in a local newspaper. A reasonable synopsis summary will be used for those new bylaws exceeding more than 10 column inches of ordinary newspaper print, and the entire bylaw and summary will also be available in the office of the town clerk. Article 3, Town Manager, Section 2, Powers and Duties, number 1, page 9 of the charter, currently reads, shall appoint and may suspend or remove, subject to the provisions of civil service law where applicable and except as otherwise authorized by the charter, all department heads and members of boards, committees, commissions, and employees. Appointment of the police chief, fire chief, and Department of Public Works superintendent may be made by the town manager, which shall become effective unless rejected by a majority of town council members by roll call vote within 45 days of the town manager's presentation of the name and qualifications of the recommended candidate for the position of the town council, or at the next regular town council meeting, whichever comes first. The proposed enhancement here is town manager shall appoint and may suspend or remove, subject to the provisions of the civil service law where applicable and except as otherwise authorized by the charter, all department heads, members of boards, committees, commissions, and employees. Appointment of the police chief, fire chief, Department of Public Works, superintendent, and town clerk, clerk of the council, made by the town manager, shall become effective unless rejected by a majority of the town council members by roll call vote within 45 days of the town manager's presentation of the name and qualifications of the recommended candidate for the position to the town council, or at the next regular town council meeting, whichever comes first. Summary, this change would add town clerk, clerk of the council to the aforementioned 3 department head positions. Some of the reason behind that particular change is because the clerk under the charter works for the council, so that was one of the recommended changes. I also have feedback on it from Pat Henry, sent an email. His concern with this, he actually asked me to read it. By strict wording, if any counselor fails to show up for the first meeting, perhaps in the hospital or perhaps on purpose for a political reason, the council could not act to elect new officers. Then by failing to act, they would automatically be in violation of the charter's requirement to act. If there really is a problem, would it be better to require the annual election to be held at the first regularly scheduled town council meeting at which the full council is present, and provide that the existing slate of officers shall continue in place until such annual election is completed. Even if still could possibly delay the election into July or even later, given pre-planned vacations, which is why he believes it to be a wiser choice to make no change at all. And then publishing the bylaws, he just had questions on who determines how many words are in a 10 column inches. I don't know, how do you determine that one? Tom, you might have an answer to that. How do you determine the 10 column inches?
Well, the font that we have used, in the reminder, the last couple of bylaws, we're going to use that. And that's a standard font that I've looked at other cities and towns, that's what they use. And I know there's a possibility to use number of words to use the synopsis, but more towns, again, I'm talking to the Attorney General's office, a lot of them go with the column inches.
Well, that was his question about number of words as opposed to 10 column inches or whatever.
And the 10 column inches is determined by the newspaper, the publication.
Right.
They're the ones to say that's how much it will take.
Right.
And the synopsis would be crafted, I'm assuming, by you, correct?
With approval by, obviously, the town manager.
And also, obviously, as we're getting it together.
Right.
Exactly.
And the wording of the synopsis final approval would be you, Denise?
I don't know.
That's
if
a question he asked.
It depends on what it's about. There are times when it might end up at the town attorney's. It depends on what
I think that's probably the best way to do it. Review, upon approval or review by the town attorney would be probably the policy, right?
Right.
And the proposed wording leaves it unclear that the full bylaw, not just the synopsis, must be available in the clerk's office. So as long as we know that we would put a full copy of that bylaw in the clerk's office, not just the synopsis. Is Pat still here? How was that, Pat? All right.
Thumbs up.
Ralph, you have? Come on up, buddy. It is a public hearing.
Ralph Page, 306 Prospect Street. I am a former Charter Commission member. I have negative opinions on all 3 of these. I'm going to start with the president, vice president, the election of the board members, changing it to the full council. I guess my first question is, what is driving these changes? What is so important that we have to change them right now rather than wait to the charter itself specifically says that there will be a full review. I believe it's each year that ends in a 0. And a committee has to be formed to look at the charter and make suggestions. So I guess my first question is, what's driving the changes? As far as the first one with, as far as the president, vice president, a full council member, at any time, this council can vote to change the president and vice president. It's in the charter. So if you don't like, July 5th is the first council meeting, there's only 5 of you present, and you vote for president, vice president, at the next meeting that's a full council, you move to reorganize. I don't see the driving factor in this.
I'm sorry.
That's the first. The second set would be transparency. I personally feel that the bylaws should be posted in the paper. one of the items that was brought up was that the reminder is not even considered a newspaper. And I would agree with that. That's a publication. So if we're going to change the charter, let's make it so that we can put it into the local paper that everyone actually reads. Nothing personal. Very few people read the Springfield Republican, getting into what's going to happen with public hearings and all in East Long Meadow. We read the reminder. So if we're going to make this accurate, let's put it that we change it to a publication, a local publication. With that being said, I still feel as though the entire bylaw should be written. I know we're looking at money savings, and I understand that, except for the fact that I don't believe we have a track record of what this is even going to cost us. I know from going back through on the charter that the publications for the town meeting was $6,500. That's the information we were given. That's what it cost to do a special town meeting and an annual town meeting. As far as the bylaws go, obviously we're going to have years that are going to have a few more bylaws than others that are changed. Some of them are going to be longer than others. I know for a fact the marijuana bylaw was extremely long. But it gets the information directly to the public. I pick up the reminder and I go through and I read that. To sit down and go on the computer, of which I know one of our board members on conservation doesn't even have a computer, and he has to get phone calls to tell him when the meetings are. So you can't expect people to be able to just go to their computer or go to the town hall and look this up. If it's in a general publication, they're going to see it. It's delivered to each person's house. What was the third one?
Adding the town
Adding
clerk to the,
And adding the town clerk. Our thought was, the three of them that we listed were public safety. The police, the fire, and superintendent of public works. This is a clerical position. Why should that be elevated to the same as public safety? And if the town clerk's going to be elevated, why not the planning director? Why
planning
not
director
the
doesn't work
council of
for us.
aging?
Planning director doesn't work for the council.
And the clerk of the town clerk doesn't necessarily.
The town clerk does by the charter.
But he's doing both jobs.
The town clerk does by the charter.
Right now, the town clerk and the clerk of the council, he's doing two jobs.
That's what the charter calls for.
No,
Yes.
it can be separated. It can be actually two separate positions, or one person can do it.
That's not what it says.
I would like it pointed out that the town clerk has to be the clerk of the council. I don't believe anywhere in there it's written that the town clerk is the clerk of the council.
Well,
maybe a correction
Well,
that
what-
the clerk of the council would be the one approved by you all.
I was going to say, while we're looking at that, if I could address your first concern about the president, why should I be penalized if I want to be president of this board and I happen to be on vacation or something happens where I can't make the meeting? You're just going to elect, I've been on a committee where you elect people willy-nilly. I've seen that happen, and you look ridiculous. So to elect somebody like the first week in July and then re-elect somebody else the second week or the third week in July, I think we look foolish. I think it's better to wait until you have an organized full committee and then elect the president, vice president.
I would just add to that quickly that this group is also,
Section 3, president, vice president, and clerk. The town clerk shall be the clerk of the council. It's the fourth paragraph, section 3 of the charter. Go ahead.
I was just saying,
Thank
you
you.
know, this group has also showed a propensity to work together, and if necessary, we can have an off-cycle meeting. If vacations aren't, you know, adding up to a full council, I think that there wouldn't be one among us that wouldn't, you know, have a special meeting
And we
if we
have.
needed to get it done. And we have, and we will in the future. So, you know, for us, we all want to participate and have the ability to vote, and we shouldn't be, you know, if there's 5 people here, they shouldn't make that decision. I think all 7, and I think we came to that consensus. I don't see that in any way being a negative, that all 7 of us want to work together to cast our vote and make an election for president and vice president. And there's no downside to it. And I don't think anybody.
I would just like to, what is your opposition with that?
No, my thought is, what I'm trying to find is what's driving these changes when there's going to be changes, and the whole charter needs to be
Well,
looked
Ralph, I
at.
could tell you certain things. We came up with a few changes. Sorry, Mike. We came up with what drove the whole thing of changing anything was this bylaw printing because of the expense, which we can't budget for based on the number of bylaws we change. We don't have any idea year to year how many you're going to change and how much the expense is going to be every year. So we can't budget in the clerk's office every year to have, there's not a figure we can come up with that is going to be accurate. We're either going to be over, under, we could be grossly under. So when we looked at it,
That wasn't the only reason either.
no, but that was partially the reason was, that's what we started looking at. When we researched it and went to the Attorney General's office, they said that a synopsis is appropriate based on length and cost. Then we said, well, let's look at other things that aren't major changes, because these are not major changes. Major changes can wait till 2020, and we'll just look at things that are what we've come to see that might easily be able to be put on the ballot for
2 years.
Right, but we also don't necessarily see a need for major changes. I don't know, like, right now, there certainly is not a need for major changes in the way that it was written, and we're working within the parameters of it. We also looked at that bylaw and you mentioned transparency. In order to be transparent, you have to try and get the word out to as many people as possible, which is the whole premise of creating a subcommittee on social media and communication. The majority of people are not reading the newspapers. I mean, that's just a fact, and it's why the newspapers are going out of business in droves. Some people do, so we have to find a way to get to more people, and by putting a synopsis in there, that we're going to redirect some people, and other people may use their primary source of gathering information via social media and never pick up the newspaper. So we have to attempt to reach and modernize how we're interacting with people. So there's nothing nefarious about, we're not trying to circumvent anything. We're not trying to, like hide what we're putting out there. We're actually trying to increase the usage and allow more people to participate.
And on this, to add to that.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Sorry, Joe. Just to add to that, these are only to go on to a ballot question for approval at the ballot for the election.
I realize, but having a public hearing, it gives me a chance to actually
I
speak
got
to
you.
the entire council.
I have to agree with your second point, though, because if you're going to pick a newspaper, and I think I could probably poll the people here, of the two, the Reminder is the better choice. It is the only paper that is delivered free to every household in East Long Meadow, whereas the Springfield paper is not. It has to be a quiet purchase. You have to hit it. So as far as getting the message out, I would say if we can do a modification to include, to have the Reminder, if the AG's office is fine with that, then I think that should be the one, because it is in fact delivered to everybody free of charge.
I'm not sure if you could specifically state the Reminder
Local
or a
publication.
local publication.
And use the word local publication.
To answer part of your question, too, the change in the charter, what brought this about was the phase that has negative financial ramifications. And so the three of these changes were lumped together, and they're time sensitive. I think that's what we're missing. When you spoke to the Attorney General, right, nor did he have these on the ballot. So that's why it's in front of us tonight.
And I guess my one other question, and I apologize to Tom, I had asked him to get the information together, what the cost was for the publication of the bylaws, and I haven't picked it up, and I will. Do we know as of right now what our cost was over the last 6 months for just publicizing these bylaws?
I can tell you just one was over $2,000 when we looked at it, and we said, we're just blatantly wasting taxpayer dollars
That's
on
what
this.
the catalyst for this was.
I believe that one for
2,000
2,000 was to be published in the Springfield newspaper.
Right.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
We've done 3 bylaws so far. Can we change it? The adult use, the marijuana,
I think so. We still got the
and
public
the
hearing's all about.
12 months to 6 months, as far as people with overdue taxes.
But they were in the Springfield Republican, correct?
No, there was one in the Springfield Republican. That was the 12 months to 6 months. Again, that was time sensitive, to get it in before the second reading. And that was a small one, so it was the cost was not major. It's the other ones, the adult store and the marijuana use. I mean, we spent over $3,000.
So do you have a general idea of the three of them, what the total cost was? Are we looking $4,000, $5,000 so far?
Yeah, we've spent over $3,000.
We've spent over $3,000 in the last 6 months.
It sounds like everybody would be happy with the reminder, and the clarification I brought up at prior council meetings was that the phraseology in the charter says a newspaper, and the reminder, as you brought up, is a publication. So that might be something that we want to change so that we can use the reminder and create a cost savings.
I guess one of my basis was if we've spent $3,000 in 6 months, just projecting out, that would be $6,000 for the year. And our warrant cost us $6,500. So I don't see where, when we've changed the government, where the big savings would be. I do see a negative impact to transparency, but I do respect each person's opinion.
I don't
And
know
like
that
I
any
said,
of us agree with that, Ralph. That we're trying to be more transparent by contacting more people.
Right.
We're not precluding people that just read the newspaper. We're giving a summary synopsis and then redirecting them for the full wording of it. So there will never be a situation where any of these things are not publicized in multiple scenarios. So how can that be less transparent? It just doesn't make sense to me, I'm sorry.
Okay, Joe, what I'm saying is you're actually taking away the full publication, and I'm going to use the reminder because that's where it's better. There's also the aspect where it clearly states in the charter that it shall be posted on the town's website, that it shall be posted in the clerk's office. So those are existing, those have to be done no matter what. And what I'm saying is being reduced is the full publication in the newspaper. So I know you're doing a synopsis, I know that's what going forwards you're looking at, but it's taking away because the others are mandatory already. So the synopsis is saying, hey, go look here. Well, I gotta tell you, a lot of times I'm going through the reminder, I see an ad or whatever with their website. I don't want to go to their website. I want to see what they got right there. I want to know what's happening right then and there. And that's my thought on it. And I would just, like I said, I appreciate you allowing me to speak on it.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Very good. Anyone else? Pat?
Pat Henry, Ridge Road. Thanks, Kevin, for reading the, I don't have any heartburn on the first item, other than I want to see the language clarified.
Which I agree with your language.
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah.
If you need anything, just say that.
Yeah, if you can change, I mean, you guys decide what you want to decide, but the language should show that you don't just not show up and not vote somebody in that first meeting.
Right.
You have to continue the council as it is, and you have to be aware that it could last 2-3 meetings unless you have a special meeting, as you
But
pointed
that
out.
just presupposes that, you know, we have years with 2-3 people running too. So we could have let's say a president and vice president on the 3-year term, or 2, and they both not get reelected. Then,
Right.
But still, it's the first meeting of the next year where you elect
right,
the
no,
new
I think he was
officers.
suggesting that the previous president and vice
Well,
president
that's
carry
true,
over.
yeah.
Well, they
That's
carry
what I'm
over
going with.
until, they have to carry over until the meeting. That's why the language needs to be
Unless they get
clear.
voted out.
Well, exactly, unless they get voted out.
So watch
Then you
out for
should
the
move.
language, because again, you've got a charter, the charter had its specific
Yeah.
requirements. Make sure that the new requirements can be met.
So it says that maybe if the current president and vice president are still serving, with that caveat, they continue to
You're
serve.
the lawyer.
I'm the troublemaker.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Pat.
Again, it's your decision, but
Thank
just
you.
clarify the language.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Now we got time to talk about it, what we want to do.
I can tell you on that point that he made about the reminder, whatever language we need to change to make sure that's the paper, because as I mentioned before, that gets most access to our citizens, because it's delivered to them.
Local publication as opposed to
So I would change the word to
newspaper.
local publication.
I would agree with that.
Or rather than eliminating newspapers, say.
Yeah,
or.
local publication or newspaper, just
So
in
we
case
have
we have to
two
put in
options.
some. Yeah.
Right, so it's not both, it's,
One goes out of business or something.
right.
That makes sense.
If I may, Tom, when you spoke to the Attorney General, was there a deadline for submitting for the ballot for our June election?
Basically, the sooner the better. They need 28 days when I give it to them. However, I've talked to them ahead of time. They know of the June 5th date, and they said, with the extent of the changes, it should not be a problem for them to turn it around very quickly.
Okay, so if we make these changes tonight, it's still not an issue with getting on the ballot?
That's why I mentioned it was time sensitive. That's why we're moving on this now, so that there's time to get it done for this election.
So do we also have to change, you know,
We look at Pat's,
I like
I
Pat's
like
wording.
what Pat
Yeah,
has.
definitely.
we gotta add what Don said, right?
Right, if serving at that time, then the current president and vice president will continue until we have.
Tom, you want me to send you this language? You want me to just send you this language?
And if we have a situation where maybe the president or vice president isn't reelected, then we could have a special meeting and
Yeah.
take care of what we have to take care of.
that would be nice.
So what, if it's in order, I'll make a motion on the second item to add the word local publication or.
I'll second.
Or
Or
local
newspaper.
newspaper
Yeah.
or
Or
local
local
publication.
It's moved in second.
Just quick comments. There's a number of other instances where it says newspaper.
Newspaper.
Does that also have to, so every instance where it says
I don't.
newspaper, do we have
Yes.
to include
I
or?
would think so.
Local
Yeah.
publication.
Yeah, local publication.
Yeah.
So you're doing it for all of them?
Actually, I would, so that if the public's reading it, they'll know that the first point should be the local publication, which comes to them. So I would say local publication or newspaper. So they'll know to look for the local publication as the first point.
First.
That makes sense?
That's what we said, right?
No, we had it the other way around. It was newspaper or local publication.
Oh, no,
We'd
that's
have
in the
local
second.
publication.
So we have a motion for newspaper or,
No,
sorry,
no,
Local publication
local
or news-
publication or newspaper, not to confuse
In
that.
every instance, we see the word newspaper, insert those
It's
words
moved and
before
seconded,
it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And then I wanted to just have the past language.
To number one.
Will be at the first regularly scheduled town council meeting at which the full council is present, and provide that the legislative officers, how would you word that one?
Carried over from the previous.
Shall continue in place until such an annual election is completed.
The existing slate of officers, if still serving at that time, and comma, and then with the rest of this stuff.
Such, okay.
If still serving at that time.
What he said.
And what he said, be a Pat.
Right. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt Pat's language with the if still serving at the time added in.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
In town manager duties, which this is where we added town clerk. Any discussion on that?
Nope.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve Article 3
So move.
as submitted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now we can close the public hearing. Good. Now we're done. Done with that. Now we're back to the budget?
No, I think we've got.
Yep.
We got,
No, we have to go.
is that taser thing? Is that what you?
Yeah, but
that's fine.
that's
That's
not a public hearing, so.
No.
Right.
We'll go back.
And we- we've got-
Everybody's
And
waiting.
the department heads like to go home for breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To have the
Go
majority
back to
of-
budget.
All right.
We're almost done, aren't we?
Yeah.
Denise, do you have an electronic copy of the budget?
Where did we end up?
You don't have your laptop, never mind.
No, we did those.
she does.
I believe.
Email me this.
We did retirement.
You didn't ask about general liability.
So the next item on the budget is, oh, you're going to say something?
No?
Debt service.
Can we just ask a quick question about 945, liability insurance?
Where are we, Joe?
What is in that line item? What falls under liability insurance?
Public officials liability, our vehicles, right?
Yep, the vehicles, the bonding, the bond sureties such as for the clerk, the treasurer, that kind of thing.
You all are
For
actually insured under that.
our police and fire, their insurance is all through here.
Boards or commissions, if they do
Yep.
something illegal, make a bad decision that we're sued, it's under that insurance.
And so what's did we bond for something more? Is there a new bond in there? What was the increase for?
The increase, again, was, it's the same insurance company, and they said, that's an estimate, and that's what we're giving you.
And remember in the,
Really?
we
It's a
do
silly
also
question,
have the brand-new ladder truck and the brand-new ambulance.
So we did-
So those items are obviously going to be more expensive than the, what was it, 29-year-old fire truck?
But do they have that already on our schedule?
Right, but if you're comparing to FY 18's budget, we planned that it wouldn't happen until, that it would take a year.
But do they have it reflected in insurance now?
Not until it actually comes live.
Yeah, so that doesn't even include those.
All right, so this is just reflective of an increase. X.
Oh, and excuse me, this line also does include the unemployment that we pay. And this year, we did have an increase in unemployment payments compared to prior years.
Understood.
You
Debt?
want to flip the page?
Why not go to debt service?
So the good news is our debt service is going down,
Yes.
and I think, is it 2020 that we will see a real significant drop? I
That's a
think.
drop off from the debt exclusion
Right.
Yeah, I believe
for the
it's,
school.
I believe it's after 2021, that's the last year of it.
It's 20 or 21?
21.
21 is the last year of that,
the middle
and then
school.
it falls off.
That's personally, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then the community preservation, as I explained before, the community preservation fund pays the general fund, and the general fund is what actually pays the debt service directly, so it's on both the sources and the uses. And this is with the current actuals. So depending on what winds up happening with the capital items, then we might have an increase in the short-term interest or a long-term, depending on what the financial advisor recommends for bonding based on the amount that we use.
You want to get some more? Any questions on that? So we're flipping the page?
Do it quick.
Any questions on this page? No?
No.
Wonderful.
I think you're putting it to sleep, Sarah.
Okay.
There's a lot of minuses, and it says debt, and it's going down, so we're good with that. Let's move on.
So the following page has some of the explanations that we've actually already talked about as we hit those particular budgets. So we'll go on to the supplemental requests that I would imagine you have some questions about.
We might as well start with 160, right?
That's the top one.
Right on top of the sheet. So I know we had talked about the additional staff, the part-time staff we talked about that, working on that
As possibly
position as possibly a temp, right?
during the spikes in the seasons
Service
that you're
date.
trying to.
Right?
Yeah. The balance of them, minus the last one, is all election-related.
So they have to do it.
Actually needs to be.
In the codification software that we're talking about, and I know I've had an at-length discussion with Tom, the presentation on this is on Monday, I
It's
believe,
April 30th, next Monday.
right? I even remembered that date, can you imagine? And one of the things we talked about today with Denise was the
Community compact.
community compact funding that we we were involved in, so we're going to try and get grant money for that from the Community Compact Grant, because it's part of what we've signed up for as a best practices type of investment. So we're going to tackle that one in maybe a different way. So,
The codifications.
yeah.
Yes.
I got a question on police detail for state elections, plural. How many elections in fiscal 19 are we having? I just know of the one in November. Do we have 2 elections?
There's a primary September 4th
Okay.
for that state election on
So,
November 6th.
so the police details like $2,000 aggregate per election? Okay.
And then we have the preliminary and the annual, so it's 4.
And the, under the maintenance fees, I typed this list out, and I did a typo. It's supposed to be 2,000?
27.95.
27, not 77?
Right.
Not 17.
Yeah, dropped 5,000.
You saved money right there.
Look at that.
Look at that, $5,000 off the
With
top.
the stroke of a
Stroke of the pen.
Choice of words.
Any other mistakes?
I don't think so. Who said that?
Yeah, right.
Is that end of the table?
No, luckily, or unluckily.
So anybody have any questions on any of those?
Just the software.
Yes.
Whenever I see software, my first question is, what's the need? Why now?
For the clerk
Assessors.
software?
No.
Oh, the assessor
Next one down.
software?
Oh,
Ryan, you got a lot to explain.
oh, so we're done with that one?
Yeah, I didn't know we were moving on.
Oh, sorry. So the assessor software, the Vision software, is the software that we use for our, for everything for the assessing for our property values. It has all of our property cards on there. It has our personal property. And so the software now, in order to do the upgrade to the next version, because they will no longer be supporting the older version, there's an increased cost in doing that.
This is the new software, too. Yeah, I think it's only a couple of years old.
Right, so it's, I want to say it's, hold on. I can look.
Sarah, this is something, how did they, I mean, is there a plan for that?
What do
So
you
it
mean?
doesn't have to be in a supplemental budget? Is there a way to know? It's not annual, is what I'm saying. So you
It's
can't-
not annual.
It's not available to plan for, like, next year we're going to have this version, and it's going to be this much.
No, so actually, when we went to Vision, that it was supposed to be a particular version, and that version had so many bugs, so they gave us the lesser version, and then it's like 2 versions after that that we're talking about now. So because they didn't give us the original, they gave us a discount on this one because they had not fulfilled everything for the
The
last
first
one.
time around.
So actually, the cost of the software is actually more, but we received the discount due to the issues that they
Right.
had with their versions.
That was for capital? Request a
Yes,
couple of years
yep,
ago.
the original was.
So that money were returned back to the general fund. So
No, they offer it as a credit on any upgrades. They did not offer it as a return of funds.
So you said the second, so the first was the offset, and this is the second, so they're charging us.
So this is to do this upgrade, yes. Yeah.
One of the big things is they have to change the database in the background. It has to go from Pervasive to Microsoft SQL. That's where the big expenses converting all that.
You sound like Charlie Brown school teacher, by the way. I don't know what that means. But thanks.
It's a big deal.
All right, that's all I need to hear, buddy.
It's a very big deal.
So I have a question. It sounds like this is essential.
Yes,
Then why is it on a supplemental list if,
because it's not every year.
And
So it's extraordinary
Got
just
it.
for this year. Next year, it would be spiking this year's budget if we built it in, and the
artificially.
next year
Got
we
it.
wouldn't
Okay.
have it, and the year after we wouldn't have it.
Tom, what did you have another question?
I guess it would be directed towards Ryan. In your budget, don't you carry the maintenance of the software for the town? Or the majority of it?
We do for the majority of the software packages. Assessors in the previous form of government was its own island, and so that hasn't moved over.
Not moving all the islands yet. We're working on it.
Okay.
And we are working, it's something that department heads have heard, both Ryan and I saying, we need to be more connected in the IT pieces of everybody's budgets.
But also sunsetting a piece of software that's not predictable anyhow. And hopefully most of these, like you're carrying a maintenance fee on, is not going to cover something like this when you're changing a platform, so.
Right, I looked at it, the assessor, she sent me the information on it, because I said the same thing you guys said, you know, we pay a maintenance fee for it, and that maintenance fee would cover if we were on the Microsoft SQL. So a lot of that cost too is going to be licensing, which isn't cheap.
That's why they make the big bucks.
Any other questions on that? Thank you, Ryan.
You got it.
Thank you.
Collector treasurer, changing part-time position to full-time.
Why?
She's right here.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Dawn.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So basically what we're asking for is we have a part-time person right now that's 19 hours, and we're asking for that person to become full-time. When the office is split, the staff of the entire office, when the clerk was with us, was 6.5 people, and now we're down to 4.5, including myself. So we're looking for this part-time person to become full-time, so we have an extra
Who's your
person in the
half-time?
office. The new girl that's working for us, Melissa Goodrow.
She's a collector's assistant is the position, so the primary purpose of that position is for customer service. It's to wait on the counter, to answer phone calls, but this person also does help with smaller projects for the collector or the treasurer, such as the accounts payable warrant. Those checks need to be stuffed and mailed out every week, and that's this person's job. So it would be this person's job expanded to be able to cover more of that counter coverage, especially during our peak busy times.
Doesn't she also work in the library as well?
No, you're thinking of
That's a
Melissa.
different Melissa.
Different Melissa,
Right, yeah, and
Yeah.
she's now full-time. So
Okay.
we had a trickle-down effect, so
All
a
right.
bunch of people have changed positions.
Go ahead, you can continue.
So the main reason was for that, because when there was 6.5 people in the office, 2 people were extra help at the counter and coverage for the phone. And then when they split up, so now we're down to, like I said, so there's 3.5 staff and then myself to cover the counter, I'll answer the phone, try and process the daily work. Also, another reasoning is our assistant treasurer, technically, the assistant treasurer shouldn't constantly be at the counter, which he is right now, because the assistant treasurer, due to segregations of duties and controls, he should be only personally taking in the departmental turnovers, not residential payments and things of that nature, because he's the main person that takes all the deposits to the bank, handles all the cash flow that goes to the bank, balances all the bank accounts and what have you. So we'd like to take him away from the counter more and only use him as like a backup if somebody was out or what have you.
And that's a pretty standard procedure for handling cash.
And as part of Mass General Law, the accounting department can't assist at the counter because since we do the accounting aspect from a control standpoint, we can't also physically touch the cash if we're the one, reconciling the books and keeping the books. So even though we have physical bodies there, we are prohibited from actually doing anything at the counter.
Using the discussion we had with regards to the clerk, adding additional part-time, and we're looking at a temp, is there an opportunity here to do that, since there's peak times during the collection process?
I'm sorry, so have a temp come work for the office?
We do have a current person that's working here for the 19 hours, unlike in the clerk's position, so we'll be expanding that current one. To then have a temp agency to come in at that is going to be, you have to do all the training, worry about the turnover for there. And yes, in some of the times of extremely high, then we have had a retired individual come in who used to do this, but that's not going to be able to last forever. And we do have pretty high overtime pay that we've had to be paying for these kinds of things.
What's the difference in hours between the part-time and the full-time?
So the part-time person we have right now is 19 hours per week, and the full-time hour position would be 37.5.
I have a question. Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
The 15,767, is that strictly salary, or does that include benefits and
Strictly
insurance?
salary.
That's strictly salary, and that's only the difference of what this 19-hour
So
position.
with the insurance, obviously that number has to change. There's other ramifications with this,
Yep.
right?
Correct, just like any other department asking for a position that on their supplemental, they put what is impacted on their department, but yes, there would be the Medicare taxes that we would pay, the health insurance, that kind of thing, just like every other department.
So if this was approved, those, obviously,
Then we'd have to.
you'd
Then
have to
they-
readjust back in operations, right? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and any suggested changes that we wind up doing with the supplemental, we will adjust the corresponding numbers on the budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else you want to add?
That's really pretty much it.
Wait all the time for that, huh?
That's okay.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're up, buddy.
Back up.
Back up.
So we could start with the low-hanging fruit. So we'll go from the bottom up. The $6,000 for the information security training.
Yep.
That is for our subscription to security training, as well as it does practice phishing tests. So
I thought you did those by yourself.
sometimes I
thought you
pretend
sat
to
at
do
home and
myself.
did that.
That makes sense. In order to meet the 2% guidelines, we got to drop that. That's kind of our thing that we can drop where we have a little bit of room. The reason I put it back in is it's obviously important, especially in today's day and age. And I'd like to try and work towards having it be part of a requirement where they go through some session module in the software in order to have an email address and be part of the network.
Oh, you mean every town employee would
Every
do it?
user.
Yep. It has modules in there. So far, the only ones that have done it are my employees. Just I can make them do that one, but, and they're probably the most,
Least in
access to
need?
most information, yeah. Probably least in need, but the most critical to have it as well. Next one is the cloud-based backup solution. So right now, we back up on our network in-house. What this would do is every backup we do nightly would get uploaded to the cloud. So if something were to happen and we were to lose town hall, we would be able to restore that backup from the cloud and with an agreement with the surrounding town, be able to basically spin up a temporary town hall. The 6,000 is an annual commitment and should cover all of our data that we have.
How does that work with our current agreement, I think with Hamden, where they do a redundant backup for us?
We've never had an agreement with Hammond for that.
Who was it with?
Never had any agreement with another town.
What was it you mentioned? You mentioned some sort of an agreement or,
So theoretically, if we had an agreement with a neighboring town, we can basically rent or borrow space in their server environment. So we could, spin up our Munis servers, we could do payroll, spin up public safety so we can continue to do the computer-aided dispatch and stuff. That would be an agreement that we'd still have to work out. I don't know.
so it has nothing to do with the $6,000?
The 6,000 gives us the cloud solution so that we would have that backup.
So regardless of where you could do it, I mean, you could do it from your house,
Got to have the backup first, like.
right? If you have the backup, you can figure out where to do it.
Right,
That's a secondary issue.
just need the backup first.
Right. We don't have the information, there's nothing to back up,
Correct.
or it's used pointless. Yeah, right.
Will we continue to back up on our local server as well as this in case there's,
Yeah.
decide to stop subscribing to it?
Yeah, you want to have 3 copies of the data, so this
Yeah.
would give us our third offline copy. One of the new variants of malware actually will go through and delete backup files, so the cloud solution would isolate us from that. Scary stuff. So the bigger one for the mid-level support staff, I've been in the department for 18 years, and we've added 1 full-time position in 18 years, and our responsibilities, as you can imagine, have increased. The vision for this position would be to work alongside our applications analyst, which primarily does Munis and a couple other things. They would have mandatory monthly, some sort of training associated in their job description. Same thing with the applications analyst on the Munis side, where whether it's a department level, an individual level, they would work on some sort of training, this application side on Munis, and the systems analyst really on probably more towards G Suite, the Google stuff. I think on the town side, there's a lot of advantages that aren't being taken advantage of that these positions could really leverage and help departments out on. I spent probably a half hour, 45 minutes working on a document in Word that if it were a Google Doc and everybody worked on one document, you wouldn't have to go through. There'd be no versioning, everything would be one document.
I was talking about one that I worked on.
They don't use that? The shared document, the Google Docs?
The town side is slow to adopt. The biggest thing is they have to identify where it's good. You know, Excel and Word are absolutely more powerful, but the collaboration you get with, on the Google side is a lot stronger. Now, the school side, it's pretty much all they use.
So, for instance, certain finance things that I do in Excel would not work in Google Sheets.
No, I get that,
Other
but I'm
things
just
that I
saying,
do, I can
if you're
absolutely
doing
use
a
that.
collaborative project, that Google Docs is like, as much as I dislike it, the easier way to do it, rather than save, send, change, all, you know,
Yeah,
I don't know.
which is what we have to do. The one that he was working on was the IMA for Hamden. And we're dealing with outside attorneys that don't have Google,
Right.
or aren't using Google Docs. So we do have to learn where we can use Google Docs, how to use Google Docs, and when we need to.
When to apply it.
And so
Yeah.
what you're saying is this position, part of that would be teaching the town side of people how to
Yep.
do and when to do and.
Yeah, the school's really good, obviously, with professional development, and the town side's farther behind.
It's a nice way to put it.
All the way down to the bottom.
Would this position, I'm wearing the subcommittee hat, which you're a member of, thank you. Website, where do we go from here to improve the website? Is this new position, one of the going to be working on that?
It would be a shared responsibility between this position and the existing one. So in IT, we provide access and we basically provide the structure of the website. The content comes from the departments and the employees.
Okay, but in terms of making it more social media friendly, so if we put a link on, it's not a link to another link to another link, is that, are we contractually obligated for how long to this current website company that we're using? And can we have something that's a little more, much more perhaps user-friendly?
I can tell you our current vendor, Civic Plus, is the industry leader. And it's to switch, I think it was about $35,000 for a new website vendor. And
How long ago was that, Ryan?
that was 5-6 years ago.
Are there updates that we should have?
So part of our maintenance agreement with Civic Plus is we get a redesign
Which
every
we
4
just
years,
did.
which we just did.
Okay, you know, again, what happens is, you know, we share a meeting,
Oh,
and then and all you see is the same generic
Absolutely
symbol with
agree.
a number 5 or whatever number is on it.
I agree.
That's not really driven by the website. That actually comes from an RSS feed reader, and that publishes.
Can that be changed?
That can be changed.
Okay, all right, and would that job be assigned to the new person or to somebody that makes it more transparent when you put it up on
It's something we
Twitter?
could look into. If we can find another automated solution that can do it and do it cleaner, you know, I'm not happy the way that it happens now, but it's free. And even the one we have now, if there's 200 posts in a day, it stops posting for that day until the next day.
I mean, what I have to do is take our agenda, run it through Adobe, convert it to a JPEG, and then I post it on my page, and it gets shared in other social media pages.
Right.
So maybe a way to streamline that a little bit.
Yeah, the biggest thing with us is we want to try and make it simple. So if it gets posted to the website, if there's a way where we can automate it where it'll go
Yeah.
across all the
So
other
they don't have
platforms.
to click, click, click. Like I said, all I do is take the agenda, just convert it from a PDF, which isn't particularly Facebook friendly, to a JPEG.
Right. Like, so we would provide a structure. It's not so much as doing the legwork. No, we can automate, and that's what we do in IT, is automate everything we can.
Maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah. I'm sure there's other solutions out there.
So, and that's it.
That's it.
You're done.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jeff, you're back.
So the first item you see there is the lieutenant's position. It's looking for funding for a half a year. I've had numerous discussions and looking around various communities. We're the only one that goes from patrol sergeant to chief in a rank structure in area departments, whether they're small or large. It's been like that since I've been on board, since '86, probably long before whenever. So coming out of the dark ages a little bit, I think it's time to put another mid-level command staff in place to move the department forward and have some more accountability throughout the rank structure. So you'll see a half a year is based on the issues we have with civil service, if that's a civil service position, or if it's not. But if it's a civil service position, there's a testing that we have to adhere to.
How about this? It's just disregard the civil service position.
All right.
Go without.
That's fine. We can do that. I've checked with civil service, and we are a civil service department, but because that position was never in rank.
It's never under it, right?
It was never under, the department never had that position. We just never funded it all these years. If that was the case, we'd have to deal with it.
Right.
But it was my understanding.
We never had one.
Never
And
had
that's
one.
my recommendation as well, that it not be part of civil service, nor a union position.
No, I wouldn't think so.
So to work all the nuts and bolts and get we've been busy with a lot of other things lately, moving forward with the regional dispatch or the Hampton dispatch and other personal stuff that's going on with the department. This is on the table. It's for a half a year, so we can get anything. We're not going to look for full year funding because we won't be ready for July 1st to invoke that position if it was granted. So in the interest of obviously saving money, we're looking to get on.
So basically like a deputy, right? Pretty
You
much.
be a deputy, you can, the rank.
I mean, you could make it whatever.
Whatever name you want to
Whatever.
call it, sure. Lieutenant, captain, deputy chief, or whatever. But that's the understanding behind the half-year funding.
To start creating a more of a layer of management between rank and file.
I had a question too, and I forgot what it was.
So we'd be looking at a job description,
Oh, yeah.
all of make sure that pay is competitive. If this in fact is not enough funding for even a half year and it's a third of a year, we'd do that. It's not that we are aggressively going after it for like a
This is part of the
specific
planning.
time. It's part of the plan of getting that department into a better spot.
And not to just, but Paul, you have a deputy, right?
Effectively, July 1st, the deputy, he's actually a shift officer.
Yep.
So contractually, because we're going 4 groups, we actually changed that to a
That's
shift
right.
captain now, he'll be a captain.
Yeah.
In the future, I'll probably be doing what Jeff's doing, but that's 4 or 5 years away.
I just wanted to, I mean, I was just assuming
Deputy
it.
right now is a union position.
Okay.
So as far as a management level, it's not really a management level. It can involve any discipline, any personnel issues, any of that stuff. So Denise and I have had the conversation, the union was on board with making the change, the person was on board with making the change. So it's
Go in that direction.
going that direction, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
It's not a Monday through Friday position. Right now, it's a shift position.
Gotcha.
So that's why we made it a captain. He's going to be the same as all the other captains.
All right, thanks.
So, good question. Chief, so is this a net new position, or is this?
Yes, most likely it will be, if it don't come from within the ranks, it would be a new position, but yes, for the most part.
We wouldn't be
We're making a new
reducing
spot.
staff.
We're making,
Yes.
we're making a new position, yes. But where it comes from, it remains open right now.
So we might attract somebody from within the union now to take the position, and then, but we would expect to replace that person.
My argument against civil service, just for the record, is because you only get 2 candidates from civil service. If you post it as a civil service lieutenant's position, you only get the number of vacancies plus 1 to interview.
Well, it certainly
Limits your
the
pool.
It's 2 plus 1, so you get
Or
3.
3.
But the point is, you're marching to their rules and
Right.
regulations they have set out in their timeline too, which is part of their, another issue. So they have a set of rules you follow, and you have a timeline that they follow. And you try to meet that with, for new hires anyways, you try to meet the academy schedule, which is a separate entity from civil
Right.
service.
It's struggling
So
a lot.
everything kind of, in that
Nothing
aspect.
works.
It's not like snap your finger, hire someone next week, and away you go.
Well, it gives you an open pool to look at, too.
It would give, being non-civil service, more than likely, yes, you'll open up your pool of candidacy a lot better.
And I have yet to see, not having worked with civil service before, an advantage to having civil service. I don't know, do you see an advantage? to
Well,
having
some people
civil-
can argue either way on it, but most communities, if you look at the website, they show the ones that are dropping out of civil service.
Right.
That's another day, another argument as far as why the community did it, but most of it's probably going to fall back to the standards that civil service or the rules and regulations that you have to follow to make sure the right person's hired,
Right.
for lack of a better term.
Any other questions on the position?
No.
No.
Anything else on the supplemental budget for the chief?
There's
Well,
another
he's got
supplemental.
another,
That's part 2.
he's got another one.
There's one more in there.
Well, I was wondering if they had any question on those. Oh, there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the next one you
I
see.
missed the second part, Jeff, sorry.
That's okay, we're good. The next one you see here is for the greeter as we move forward towards what we believe will be a successful dispatch center with Hamden. We expect that our officers will now be on the road that are currently doing dispatch and leaving the lobby unmanned, but not really, but mostly unmanned, with no one really there to greet them when they come in. This position here would cover that. I've looked at, there's obviously 24 hours a day that we're open, so it's not like a 9 to 5 job. Internal staff is being moved around to accommodate the first hours during the day, the 8 hours during the day. And what you see there for numbers are the additional hours needed, because we are a 24/7 agency, to cover the 16 hours per day outside of what we normally got hired.
As part of our agreement with Hamden for the dispatch, I'm assuming there's a savings there to the town?
There
that
is
can be
not,
applied to-
initially, there is not a savings to it,
So it can't be
because
applied
we're
to
not
this.
reducing staffing.
But what we are going to be able to do is put the officer that's
Out
on
on
the
the
desk
street.
right now on the street. And that's going to provide a better service to the town.
As well as the
And-
regional dispatch will have 2 dispatchers, whereas right now we only have 1.
So, and that's heading toward the way the
State is mandated.
is mandating. So we'd eventually have to do that on our own, most likely?
Eventually, the state will, they're trying to regionalize all dispatching.
And the flip side of that, it opens us up for grant money that we
Yes.
didn't have before. So there's a,
Yes.
I mean, there's not a cost.
It's not a cost savings that we
Savings,
can really
sort of,
put our arms
but
around,
potential.
but at the end of the day, there likely will be.
A return on that
As I said,
investment.
this is the year that we need to make that the highest investment. From that point on, if we were to add another community down the road, now we're splitting the dispatching expenses 3 ways and probably not increasing it by a third, so.
So this entitles, again, there's a lot of folds to this project here. Another one would be that I want to get into the schools more. I've talked to Gordon Smith. He's receptive to us being a presence in the school, other than just being the boogeyman, so to speak, and to have a different interaction with the kids out there. So having the 3 guys on the road leaves us able to answer calls and
I see him in the morning.
and do the smaller stuff that we don't have to, we can't do now.
Right.
Without costing some kind of backfill and overtime. So it just kind of jiggles it, try to, less jiggling of our schedule and making more people available to do different things during their course of tour duty.
Since we haven't signed an agreement with Hamden yet, is this putting the cart before the horse? What if, I'm just saying what ifs, What if that agreement doesn't work out for the best interest of our town?
We're not spending,
civilian
yeah, we're not
dispatchers.
spending those dollars.
We still have civilian dispatchers even if the agreement doesn't work out, so you still get to cop out on the street, correct?
Well, the money's in the money is
Money's
in the budget.
budgeted already for
So we will
civilians.
fall back to a civilian, our internal civilian
Civilian
dispatch.
So this would cover that?
This will not cover that. This is
No.
part of the other part of the budget for the
But we've already
311.
budgeted
We
for it.
within-
It is in the regular budget on a line item.
It's 311 is the amount in the regular budget under
It's a line item in the regular
contracted
budget.
service or something. I don't remember the exact name, but it's one lump amount. If the Hampton were to fall apart,
And
we would then ask for some disbursement of that money so that we would take on dispatching internally.
Thank you,
don't
that was
forget,
my question.
on top of that though, we have that 118 that we have not spent.
Correct.
There's 118,000.
But
The
we're not going to
192,
carry that
yeah.
over.
No, I'm just saying, as it stands right today, that 118 is there, whether it goes back to the general fund or how it gets absorbed through Hamden or future, it still hasn't been used.
So I think we are so down the road with the dispatch. I am not seeing any, and I don't want to speak for Jeff, but I'm not seeing any huge stumbling blocks that would cause it to not happen, except for them possibly not approving it at their budget
Exactly.
process.
Will they have a meeting in May?
And we've
to-
talked
the town
about that,
meeting?
it's May 14th, I think, and we've
Right.
talked about that with them, quite frankly, this week, because we want to know where we stand on it. So we would know that before the end of this budget season.
Okay.
I would add that the positive side of this is we have 2 vacancies currently right now, and we'll have another one in July. So being able to put 3 people out on the road will help satisfy that well, while they're retraining anyone new they bring in. Correct?
Yes, I just want you to understand that the greeter here is different from the civilian dispatch part of it. So we can't go forward in Hamden without having greeters in place. And that's why it was a supplemental, because it's not a guarantee with the final product with Hamden yet, although we can talk about it all night long. It looks pretty good. But this is why it wasn't put in the budget. It was a supplemental to just to let you know that there was, it's part of an issue with the dispatch. That's all.
But
And there's a
separate
lot-
from the dispatch agreement itself.
Right.
Okay.
And there's a lot of work that the dispatchers are currently doing besides dispatching, so if that goes away, I mean, there's still going to be details to be filled and shifts to be filled, so there's a job there. And that could be modified going forward, too, based on what you see the first year in terms of hours. So, I mean, if nobody comes in from 11 o'clock to 3 in the morning, it might be modified slightly, correct?
Right, and we've tried to tell you over and over tonight, we've tried to put the worst-case scenario, you've heard that before tonight, put the worst-case scenario of the budget going forward, and next year, if things turn out, we can fine-tune it a little bit, and it shouldn't go up, it should go down.
Right, it is the worst-case scenario.
So that's, and it's only in fairness to you guys to know what the,
Cover all our bases now.
Yeah.
and that job will not, and I use the word greeter, but obviously there'd be more functions to that than just, hi, how are you?
Well, the big alarm that was going off, and everybody's talked about it, is a black station, and that's what this is. This is a safety net, so there is no black station.
Any other questions on that?
You don't have another surprise part for me, no?
No, turn the pages.
You don't have another surprise part for me?
No.
Part 3, there's no part 3, is there?
Well, there was one, but we had to pull it back, it was just a matter of how much you guys can take in 1 year.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Flipping the page, the next one is the fire. And the chief can certainly explain both of those.
I'll hit the big one first.
Hold on, Paul, let me guess, it's part of the 3-year transition plan? Right?
Well,
It is, really.
It is really.
It is, but it wasn't, it was something that was kind of overlooked initially, understanding the increased responsibilities for the administrative assistant. She's going to be, whoever it is going to be responsible for collating and reconciling the invoices, the bills, the billing with the billing company. So her responsibilities are actually increasing skill-wise. That's why the change in pay grade. And because we're not jumping into this 24 hours a day, ALS level, we're not sure where the hours are going to go. So I initially proposed a full-time position, but meeting with Denise and Sarah, they recommended bringing it back for now, bring it back to 30, and see where we end up. And hopefully it works out well for us this year. And if we need to increase the hours next year, I'll be back here again. I'm hoping
At some
not.
point, like if you did a revolving fund for the ambulance, you could pay out of that, correct?
Well,
Ultimately,
part of-
Down,
part
it's
of it.
obviously down the road.
Only part of it,
Right, but
because it has to relate only to ambulance if it's a revolving fund for ambulance.
we do split duties or whatever for
Yeah.
portions of days or whatever.
Several departments do that. They split their pay for their firefighters and all that, so that when that revolving fund comes in, they can
Move it out.
direct it towards the fire department.
So that administrative
phase.
person will need even more hours to do all that splitting.
Quick question here.
Yep.
And I see this as kind of a common theme on a few asks, not just for you. We consider full-time at 37 and a half?
For most departments, yes, that
So
is what their contracts say.
Are you saying we would not offer this person benefits?
They would,
At 30 hours, that would be benefit eligible, yes.
Right.
At 20
The
hours.
Affordable Care, well, the
Well, the
Affordable Care
30-hour
Act requires
request.
everybody to do it at 30 hours. So this is, so you're saying it's not a full-time position, but this person's going to be full-time benefit eligible?
It would be benefit
Correct.
eligible, correct,
Yeah,
yes.
and therein lies the problem. It's not just the salaries,
it's benefits as well.
it's the benefits.
Correct.
That's correct.
So if you did 29 hours,
No, it's
Still
still
be benefit
benefits.
eligible.
After 20.
I
Anything
thought it
over
was up
19.
to, I would have thought when it would hit 30.
No, in the retirement, I want to say
What
it's like
the-
21 and a
What the law
quarter
is for the
hours.
Affordable Care Act is different than what we choose to do as a town. We've
policy
done
has.
something more generous than the government has required us to do. That's different. So I'm not saying we should revise that policy, but the threshold is 30 hours.
That's government required,
Right.
yes. That is correct.
So, yeah, just a thought there.
The second item on my lower dollar amount is 996, and that equates to a 2% increase for call firefighters. Call firefighters are not part of the union. They can't come in front of the town manager and request a raise. Paul Federici remembers that the board, for years, the chiefs would not do it every year because it was always a tight year. They haven't actually received a raise. I think the last one was 2015. They got a 3% raise at that time.
And it was 10 years at least before
Yeah,
that.
and I think it was 8, yeah. And it was always a struggle depending on who the board members were. These guys are still a valuable part of the department, even moving forward. I count on them for what they do. Although the calls have dropped, but when we really need them, there's a fire, they're coming out of woodwork. And to be honest with you, a firefighter right now makes $12.10 an hour. A lieutenant makes 14 and change. A captain makes 15 and change. They're not doing it for the money, but if we can come up with a process to, the town says it's 2% this year, so we give them a 2% raise. And again, if everybody is going to see that increase different because everybody responds at a different rate, at a different amount throughout the year. But if I take my total budget for the year for the call firefighters and add 2% to it, that's where that $996 comes from.
How many do we have?
Call firefighters right now, 21.
But they don't all show up for every
Right.
call.
They're only getting paid when they show up.
They pay when they train, and they get paid when they train, and they get paid when they show up for calls.
And this is in parity with the contracted firefighters that they're fighting fires right next to.
Right.
I mean, the 2% increase.
We are one of the lowest paid, actually, one of the lowest paid call fire departments in the area. Hamden, who just started paying them, their firefighters, is paying them $20 an hour for a firefighter. Out of the get-go. I'm not asking for that today, just.
So you base that number off past projections on
Today. Right.
how many they responded to,
Right.
how much training was involved, and how many actually show up for the event.
Right, and that's exactly. It's a hard number to come up with, and
Yeah.
I've been lucky the past few years. We try to make sure we don't have to come back to the well, and we've been pretty good with that.
Very good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bruce, are you still awake?
No, school.
Yeah, school we already did.
Maybe we know it.
Oh, I'm sorry, education.
Did we go through all these? That sheet?
We went through them, really.
Yeah, we went through them all.
It's not,
What, if,
Happy to take questions?
yeah, do you have
or-
questions?
I think,
I will,
I think what they're saying is yes, right?
no.
No, we're saying we've heard.
Say we can go home.
Job is never done.
Does anybody have any questions? Because I know we talked about this a little bit when we got the sheet, and then toward the end of our discussion, we kind of went over it, but.
One thing that I would reference is, and I think we did in one of the questions, this sheet that I passed out puts them in priority.
Oh, okay.
And then just for clarification, because we understand, and essentially you're not being penalized because of that one-time event. We know that that's
The 570,000?
included in there. Like that was a little confusing when we were all chatting through that, but we get that. We understand.
Appreciate that.
Oh, man, I don't know. Anybody have questions for Gordon on these?
I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of hashed it out prior, so.
Sorry to keep you waiting for
It was
that.
enjoyable.
Sure it
So I'm
was.
back up here.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Much appreciated.
Just one quick question.
Forget it.
No. The last two, are they
Run,
reverse
Gordon,
order?
run.
Close.
I'm sorry?
No, the last two reverse order, you said in order of priority, 6 and 7, and you have 6 is a 25,000 increase in curriculum, and 7 is
Social emotional.
emotional.
Correct. So
But this
that's-
order has a different order.
Correct. So this is the prioritized order.
So this
That was discussed.
overrides this?
Yes.
Gotcha.
All right, that was easy, run away.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. I made that quick for you, Bruce. What do you think?
Waiting a while. I'm going to go over my supplemental, but I just want to kind of give you a brief overview on our first year for this new MS4 permit that town's going to be required to do. So this is an unfunded mandate set forth by the EPA and the DEP, which will start on July 1st. The first requirement will be to submit to the EPA and DEP notice of intent and a stormwater management plan by December 29, 2018. Another item which will be required to do is to do public education and outreach, adopt and amend the town bylaws, drainage system mapping, written IDD program, outfall and interconnection inventory, initial ranking of 385 of them. Dry weather outfall and interconnection screening and sampling, annual employee training, stormwater management and new development and redevelopment plans, and annual reporting and record keeping.
Pretty straightforward.
Sounds all legit to me.
Yeah, well, it's a whole new thing when it comes to our stormwater system, so we'll be educating you guys, doing, like I said, public outreach to the public, and getting other departments involved also, as far as planning department and everything else, so everybody's kind of aware what's going on. So the first one was to hire 2 interns from local colleges, roughly for 2 to 3 months, starting probably in July 1st. Those positions can be roughly about $8,000. The next thing would be we're going to need to hire an engineer to supply the DEP and the EPA a notice of intent. $11,000 will be for testing equipment for those college students to go out in there and do the testing to those outfalls. They'll be testing for metals, other contaminants in our system that eventually obviously goes out into our brooks, rivers, and everything else. Therefore, this is why this has come to us to get this done. The other item in there is to purchase some GPS software, which Ryan will be helping us to get installed. This will be to identify and locate all our outfalls and get it onto our GIS system.
And GIS went over, right? GIS is MIS?
GIS is
IT.
is for IT, yes.
And this is all just mandatory. So I just want to
Yes.
put it out there that it's, we don't have an option.
No.
That they're unfunded mandates, basically.
This is the funding for the unfunded mandate.
Right, here we go.
And this, like I said, this is our first year. We're going to be looking for funding sources. I kind of threw some funding ideas off Denise and Sarah.
Selling candy bars or something?
Yeah, so we'll be coming to see you again at some point in time to get some recommendations from you guys to come up with a good plan.
Most likely an enterprise fund.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
Paul's idea was better.
So it's going to be a lot of work for the department in the long term, but
Paul did have a suggestion. He would sell bottled
Sell
water.
bottled water to fund this.
there you go. Any questions?
Nope.
Well, while you have Bruce up here, I
Can we
want
do
to
the
acknowledge...
enterprise funds?
I'm sorry?
Do the enterprise funds now?
We can certainly, but I wanted to just go back quickly. You don't even need to look at the budget. This is one of our newest department heads. He inherited a department that we have revamped. He has made significant cost savings, and one of our very biggest budgets with a new department head, and he's come in at less than 1% increase. So I mean, as we went through, we looked at those that were on the high side and didn't really give credit to those that have really worked very, very hard to come in under funding. And he has less hair than he had before the whole process.
It's going to continue to thin out.
He needs glasses now. Job well done.
Bruce, while you're here, can we just jump to the water and sewer? Sure. So we can just...
Enterprise funds?
Any questions on these?
They were approved last night by the Board of Public Works.
Yes, they were, amongst other things.
Any questions
All right, well, that was easy.
on water or sewer?
Okay.
Go
There you
home.
go, buddy.
Good stuff to get capital to do though,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
right? I won't go anywhere yet.
Don't run too far.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Library.
Did Leila leave?
She did.
I guess
When
Leila left.
she left, because we told her we didn't need her.
Oh,
Yeah.
after the budget piece.
Right.
So just another quick point here, moving a position from 24 hours to 30 hours, the person's already benefit eligible.
Correct.
What would be the difference then, just making that a full-time 37-hour position? I mean, the salary is not the expense. So I'm just wondering, all these requests for 30-hour, if they're going to trigger benefit eligibility, then why aren't we just making these full-time people? Like by our 37.5-hour
I
threshold?
Believe that the thought was to go up in a smaller increment so as to not tax the budget a lot, is
I know,
what I
but
believe.
we're barely
was-
controlling costs, because it's the retirements, the benefits, it's the taxes, it's the workers' comp, it's the, when you cost these out, total cost of employee
it's the
is,
salary's
I mean,
not-
another 7.5 hours is not
That's a
gonna.
point well taken, but if they're only asking for 30 hours, if they only have 30 hours worth of work, why would we say, no, you should have them do 37 and a half hours?
Because
They're already benefit eligible.
well, that's my, right.
Say that again?
Yeah, this person's already, the library position, it's already benefit.
Right, but some of
They're
these other
benefit eligible
positions.
anyway. Well, why not go from 25 to 37 and just say, do something?
But there may be a reason that they only want to be, move incrementally.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe those hours help with whatever else they have going on in their life, too. You know, in terms of times off or getting home for kids that might be in the school system. I don't know. We don't know. Right? All right.
It's not necessarily for cost savings that the hours are set the way they are. In cases, it is, that's what the demand for the work is.
I know, I guess,
you don't want to
I'm
sit
saying
around
it the
for
wrong way.
7.5 hours doing nothing.
No, true, but I'm looking for the ROI for the town.
I get you,
You know, so
yeah.
if there's enough to go 5 hours, but there's not enough to go to full-time, then we just have to be careful with all these positions, because the liabilities on the other expenses, not just the direct salary, so.
It's more expensive than most of the direct salaries is the other
Yeah, and I
expense.
guess I'm just saying, either keep them 24 hours or make them 37 and a half hours. We're, like we have in this
19.
precedent where we're
It's
30 hours,
19.
30 hours, 30 hours.
19, right?
Yeah, if you're 19, you're not benefit eligible.
So we go 19 or 37.
I thought it was 25.
No.
But if we have somebody that's saying they need
Is it on
somebody
a
for
prorated
25
basis?
hours, are we going to
30.
say, no,
Is
you've
what
got to go
the
37 and a half?
insurance?
The
No.
cost prorated?
They don't need 30.
We're giving
Yeah.
the same contribution
Right.
amount for a
Might fit
20-hour
their own
employee?
needs.
Yes.
Right.
Wow, they're not here. They're not-
Point as well.
That's something to look into too. Our contribution amount for a 20-some hour employee is the
pressure
same
just
as a
went up.
37-hour employee.
That is
It
correct.
is.
Why?
That's what we've inherited. We can certainly look at
I'm just
that.
asking, I mean, obviously now it's coming up, but why
Yeah.
would we, I mean,
I agree, and when Joe brought it up, I have a note here.
Yeah, and I don't know in the past that that was done. At this point, it would be a negotiable item
it's
for
bargaining
all of the
units, yeah.
unions. But yes, that is a consideration to be taken. There's a couple of things that are having to do with insurance that we could definitely look at to see for cost savings. That's one of them. There's a couple of others. If somebody retires but they're not Medicare eligible yet, then we pay at the same contribution as an active employee. That's another cost savings area. There's several things like that.
But those are policies that the town had
and I mean, the insurance
adopted.
piece of that, just going back to this insurance
sorry?
thing. Just going back to the insurance thing really quick is like, on the insurance piece of that, are we paying the same amount per employee for like comp?
What do you mean?
Workers' comp?
Like if you broke it down, what our expense per employee is on our workers' comp insurance, why would we pay the same amount for a 20-hour person that's not here as
Well, that would
half
be,
the time?
that would be related to their salary.
Yeah,
The workers'
Right,
comp's
I'm just
based in
saying,
your,
but if you look at
the
it,
workers' comp's based in your payroll.
Yeah.
That's how they
It's
charge
based
their
on your
premium,
dollars.
is the
dollar figure
total
for payroll,
amount
so
of
it doesn't
payroll.
matter hours. All right,
Right.
fair enough.
But what I have experienced in the past is a 25-hour position is X percent of a 37-and-a-half-hour position, and that's how much of the benefits that we would.
Yeah, I've never heard of
So-
anybody not prorating it. I'm
That's-
just shocked to hear that.
That's
Just
where
ruined
I
my
came
night.
from,
I was
that's what
having a
we
good
had.
night until then.
Cheer up, Joe.
We do prorate
Don't look at me.
their vacation and all of that kind of stuff
Would-
based on their hours.
hours.
So we do that, but the health insurance itself, we do not.
Okay, it is what it is. What to deal with it going forward. Okay, thank you.
And then for the library, the $2,100 is to offset the shortfall in the materials budget. And that's because there's a certain requirement by the state as to how much we have to spend. And so we are $2,100 short of meeting that within the budget if we stay with the 2%. And so that's why it was put on the supplemental.
That's
in
to
order
keep
for
their-
us to get the full state funding.
Yeah, that's to keep their CWRs thing or
Certification,
whatever.
Right.
yeah.
So $2,100 is well spent.
So it's one time, I guess is what you said.
Every year they evaluate and say, okay, it has to be, and there's a whole calculation that you have to do, and they
State
say
formula.
how.
So it's a moving target, the number's a moving target then.
But
That's
it's
correct.
essential, just
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Rec.
And recreation. She's back.
So I'm going to be really popular and ask for some more staff.
Yes, it's still showing those two.
So the first thing I'd like to talk about is that when I originally was looking at the budget, I had included an increase of a clerk position. And also, I was looking at getting a wireless transmitter to work with the school for the football turf. But that was a month ago, and now I have more knowledge. And so right off the back, I want to take the bottom two off. So that'll help a little bit. But I am asking for another full-time position, and the reason behind that is because in taking a look at the youth sports, which is, we have a lot of youth sports. We have over 260 volunteers, 5,000 plus youth that we're serving, and it's primarily done with volunteers. I'm seeing that some of the volunteers are, they're doing a lot of work. They're at the table representing East Long Meadow when they go to soccer, to Roots. They're at the table when they talk to the suburban group. They're at the table when they talk to JLS. all these outside youth organizations, and I feel like that to have better insight and control, if you will, that we need a town employee sitting at the table negotiating when we've got the Route Safety and Compliance Committee and we have a volunteer at the table. I feel like that we need a full-time staff person there, or a town representative representing it. The other thing that I think that we need help with our youth sports is just consistency. We have different sports doing different things, and it's not a default. It's just that you have volunteers out there doing the best that they can, and because of that, we don't have the consistency that I'd like to see. Some of our sports work with the travel, but they don't want to do the rec side of the sport. Other sports do both. I got a call last Sunday afternoon from a sport that they were feeling burned out and wanted me to remove an activity from our brochure because they just didn't want to do it. And we can't do that. Of course, recreation will make that work. But it's almost a full-time job with these volunteers because they're doing a great job, but they're not I don't feel like they're getting the help they need from the rec department, and I also don't feel like they're getting the recognition that they need. Because this winter, when I was out and about on the weekends and evenings, it's just incredible. Everywhere you go, the school is filled with recreation programs, and it's these volunteers out there doing it. So pretty passionate about volunteers, and I'd like to see them have a lot more help. The other piece of this position is just because I want growth. Right now, I feel like, granted, I'm 4.5 months in, but there's a lot of time spent on youth sports, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, but that's not leaving a lot of time for community events that I'd like to see, some more fitness programs for adults, arts and crafts, music. There's just a whole component that the rec department, I don't feel is filling the needs of the residents.
So, quick comment there. I couldn't agree more that that department's been understaffed since I've been in town, which is a little over 20 years. I had the pleasure of running the Boys Lacrosse program for 7 years, and yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult to get what we needed, and there's when volunteers move on, then there's really can be a significant drop-off in the way that things are done. There's a loss of intellectual property when somebody walks out the door, and then ultimately the kids end up suffering because things aren't getting done in a consistent manner. Training's not being done in a consistent manner because we're spending way too much time as volunteers doing administrative stuff that we probably shouldn't be involved in. So I understand what you're saying and absolutely understand where you're coming from, and there is another side of it just besides the youth sports as well, and I think it's been a long time coming, so I understand where you're coming from.
I just wanted to remind everybody that a full-time position is prohibited from coming out of the recreation revolving account, hence why Donna is asking for it in the departmental.
Well, you crossed off your other two, so I guess that's it, right? That was easy. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
There is one more supplemental that I just noticed is missing, but I had briefly mentioned it earlier, and it would be for the debt. So depending on what capital projects get approved, then there would be some costs at either short-term financing or long-term financing, which we are projecting to be around $50,000 maximum based on the last time that we had discussion and on the rates at that time. So that will fluctuate based on whatever capital is approved as to those kinds of bonding costs. LCAT.
LCAT. There he is.
You got to handle the feedback and come up here at the same time.
There's no feedback if we speak up?
You can turn it down.
Oh, good point. It's the chair, Don.
It's the chair. I have a question. Can we move down to budget surplus? What's that? Budget surplus?
Yes.
Get a definition of where, how that number breaks out or where it came from?
Sure. So Mass General Law requires that for an enterprise fund, that your budget be balanced, your revenues and your expenses. So essentially, that's your profit. That is the amount of anticipated overage that Don would have at the end of the year that we're projecting based on our revenue projections and our expenses. So that is the amount that would actually go back into the his undesignated fund, essentially. That would be part of his free cash for the following year.
Great, thanks.
It?
That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Nope. How's the VHS transfer business coming along?
It's good, yeah. Got quite a few calls.
Excellent.
Really?
So that's generating, gonna generate a little bit of revenue.
Yep. Doing an excellent job, buddy. Appreciate it. You could fix this chair, I'd be better. Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Water and sewer is done, so on to capital.
Moving right along.
Capital projects.
So as we move on to the capital projects, which is 3 pages back, we will see the priorities that I have recommended, beginning with all the priorities 1, which are not in any priority order within number 1. But I think you've already received the whole list of capital projects, so you know what was taken off. And these are keeping in mind safety, public safety, infrastructure. All of those priorities went into the scoring of these. And if we go to the budget, and you'll see the capital projects budget does not include all of those that I did with the additional. It only goes to the bottom of this first page, actually. And after revisiting the capital projects with Bruce, especially because he is integral with all of the infrastructure, a lot of the school projects, and a lot of the different departments that have, if somebody needs a parking lot, it still falls under his his turf. So after doing that, I have given you all additional, the last 3 under the second page of capital projects are those that would be included if we go above what is the amount that was actually added into the budget. The second piece of it that we've already discussed when we talked about capital a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, are those things that we would recommend could possibly be bonded.
And then the last page are the enterprise fund capital items, which are reflected on their enterprise fund budgets as well.
Denise?
Yes.
That was clear. It says high school. And then the second one further down, the clock and intercom, is that for the high school also?
That's for high school,
Oh, they're all
Birchland
listed
Park,
out,
you
sorry.
see all
All
of
of
them?
them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is that has been on the capital request for a while. The last one at the bottom of the page has to do with the priorities of the school and IT to bring the amount of computers that need to be constantly recycled. If we don't do it in a cyclical way, we get a bigger chunk all at once, and this is a sounder business way to do it. Just sort of cycle them out. Don?
I have a question on the fire department. It says ladder truck lease payment 2 of 5, and then you go to the notes, lease obligation year 2 of 5.
Right.
Right below it, ambulance lease payment, 2 of 3.
It should say the 3 on the comment.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, that was a typo.
I wasn't sure which one was right.
No, it's the 3-year. The ambulance is 3-year. Thank you for catching that.
Oh, I was gonna say
Copied and
in the-
pasted and.
All the way on the right, it says 2 of 5.
I did want to let everyone know that for the sewer projects, that the 2 larger ones, those are also possible bonding. But it will also depend on what else is bonded as to whether that makes sense or not.
You're talking under enterprise.
Yes, for
I
the
have a
sewer.
question. In regards to truck number 28, is that pretty much valueless? Is it parts, or is it going to be traded in?
Go ahead, please.
Truck 28 is still, is actually still usable right now, but it's on its last legs. It probably has 100,000 miles on it or so. Let me, if I can find my equipment list here.
So do you want to keep it in operation along with the an F-550?
No, that will be traded in. Any
Okay,
equipment that we
so this
request
doesn't
will be traded in and taken offline.
Right, so at this point, I mean, this 91,000 number, that could change a little bit because there would be some value from the trade-in?
Yeah, slightly. You're probably talking, like you said, when
But
I
not
came
enough to-
before you guys, maybe $3,000 to $4,000, maybe in that range. Yes.
Sarah, I have a question with the finance. It says time, labor, and accrual. And talking with Denise earlier, she mentioned that this was something that was on or in discussion last year. So this is not a new request. This was just a carryover from last year when it was not approved.
Pretty
Can you tell
much,
me
yes.
something about that since I was not involved in that?
Absolutely. So what this would be, it would be using a separate software compared to Munis, but this software would bridge with Munis. So we would be able to automate more of our timesheets. Currently, what happens is that the department fills out an Excel sheet, manually then signs that, sends that into the payroll department, both in town and school side, similar processes. And then we have payroll staff that actually take the time to manually enter all of that in for up to 900 people at a time. And, you know, there's a bigger chance of human error. So what this kind of a system would do, it would all be electronic. We'd be able to set it up to be able to have supervisors sign off electronically. It would then be able to be fed into the system in order to be more efficient for all of our payroll processes.
Inaccurate.
Inaccurate.
Less likely. Right.
This system would also be a real-time system, so.
Did you look at this?
I am somebody who wants to request a day off, for instance. I could go into this, I would put in my time off request. When my supervisor approved that time off request, it would immediately come out of my accrual. I'd be able to see my accrual live time right then. And it would also therefore translate onto our paychecks as well as seeing it there.
Which we don't have now.
Which we currently don't have. So it would enable all of those kinds of things. Any of the softwares that do this kind of thing, they also have additional modules that might be something that we would want to do going down the line, like HR modules to help with the onboarding, the ACA, those kinds of things. But right now, what I'm requesting is to be able to do the time management, the accruals, and the labor piece of it in order to be better for our employees to have their information available to them. They could also check their own timesheet to see that it's accurate, as well as then supervisors for them to see things easier and save time within their departments at not having to manually be filling out those Excel sheets and bringing them down, as well as then in the payroll departments, both on the school payroll and the town payroll, at saving the time to be able to be analyzing it. Is it correct? What kinds of issues are there, instead of spending all of that time entering the payroll?
So every
and not getting to
employee
that
would
piece.
put it in themselves.
That there are different options.
Supervisor and be.
That you can set it up. I did ask of a couple of different companies to get an idea, and some of them that you can determine what level that you want. So some departments, such as, I'm going to pick on Ryan's department for a moment, their IT, they are very comfortable with technology. So that kind of a department, we might say, you know what, the employees could go in and certify their time. But then we might have another department, say custodial staff, that probably don't use a computer all the time, that it might make more sense for someone within their department to be verifying the time with them and not having them individually go. But all of the softwares that I did meet with, they do give you that flexibility that you can do it by department as to having slightly different, or you can have it as a set rule for everything. They all did offer things like badging in to do your time rather than having
Yeah, why do we
to
do
go
that?
in. Some of them would also do
Why would you do
thumbprints.
No, why don't we do that?
Right now,
Everybody's got a badge, why don't we do that? Come on up, buddy, grab a seat.
I'll leave my stuff.
okay.
So as of right now, we have one department badging in, that's the Public Works employees. They use...
Good job, Bruce.
They don't use their employee IDs. In IT, we try to drive everything around the employee ID.
We can get in and out of buildings, you should be able to.
Right, you can pump fuel with it, you can do a lot of things with it. The current system that Public Works has doesn't read our IDs. It's old. It's...
Yeah, it's very old, and it does not interface with Munis either.
15 years old.
Yeah.
So currently what happens is DPW does that, they have all their information there, then they print out that report and somebody manually puts it into the Excel, into our codes for payroll to be able to process
I mean,
it.
it's
So it would
literally
eliminate that
a time card
redundancy.
rack, a time machine, then a time card rack. So they take their Prox card, swipe it, and then put it in the other rack. So it's like a time card. It's just
It's also, badging is kind of antiquated anyhow. We wouldn't want hard devices everywhere. They're extremely expensive.
Very
and there's
expensive.
no need for them when it can be done on a smartphone or a desktop or a kiosk.
You can do it on
Right,
whatever.
and
You
all
can do it on whatever.
all
So
the
badging
different
is kind of
systems.
like yesterday's.
Why are we doing it like automated?
Why are
Why
we?
are we not doing something automated is really my question.
That's hopefully
that's-
where we're headed.
So that's why
I don't
I'm
wanna be
requesting it, is to
sarcastic in
help
my
get us
answers.
there and to get everything more automated and have less chance of human error out of
was there
there,
an
and
RFP?
therefore free up time.
I had a follow-up
We
question.
will be going to an RFP.
there's also
Yes.
So we've
we
done.
haven't even gotten the
so
RFP yet.
Let's
Sorry.
answer one question at a time. So we actually had a demonstration last year and actually got some quotes as to how much it would cost.
Yeah.
And we will be going out to
But we
RFP.
will do if we get the funding, we will do the formal RFP
Is there a cost
process.
comparison to outsourcing it?
To outsourcing what?
Exactly.
All
Payroll? Time accruals? I know there's companies that do it.
There are, generally, you lose a lot of control when you do that. And then
Not
there's
necessarily a bad thing.
Not necessarily. We have not looked into outsourcing the entire thing.
They wouldn't touch your payroll.
I don't think so.
Just speaking from experience, it wouldn't be an option.
Really?
What about the cost of the maintenance, the upgrades, and the support? That's going to be an ongoing yearly cost. Where's that going to show up?
Right. So this initial cost is for that initial year, for the whole implementation, the service agreement, all of that kind of stuff. After that, that would be something that would be added into the finance department's budget, and I believe it was a couple of $1,000s a year. It's not very
And that would cover any
much.
upgrades as well?
My understanding is yes, for the couple that I spoke to. Now, granted, when we go to an RFP process,
Right.
I don't know
They're all
specifics.
cloud-based systems. You don't get charged for upgrades anymore.
Yeah, so.
Okay, as long as, and Ryan's, I'm sure, part of that discussion.
Yeah, it would be a cloud-based solution where it's just
Yep.
every night, I'm sure they just do incremental upgrades.
Yeah, there's disaster recovery, there are redundancies in systems, so you don't have to keep things on your servers, and you'll be on the latest version.
Exactly, and when we if we are approved for this, granted, then that RFP process, it will be something that Ryan will have input as well, because he is IT, as well as part of the decision at reviewing those proposals, because we need to make sure that we work together as a team.
One of the other big adds with the software too, from the limited research I did catching up, is in the police department, the overtime filling, this system could automate that.
Yes,
And
which
it's
is
something I've
very
been working with
complex.
Jeff since he got the chief position, so.
And Public Works payroll is very complex as well. I mean, it really takes a lot of time for the employees, the staffing to put that all in.
Right,
And the
so it will
schools-
eliminate their system.
It'll be the schools as well. I mean, the schools payroll as well. So staffing-wise, it will save a significant amount of time.
Saving a staff person, a part-time person? I mean, to that extent?
I don't know that we'd be able to do that,
Right.
to project that.
I don't know that I could project that at this time. It would, whatever time it does free up for those individuals, it would enable them to get to things that maybe only are done once a year because we have to do it for year end instead of at the regular points when it should be to have proper controls operating. But it would make sure that everybody is on the same thing all at the same time and everybody has access to it, employees and employer alike.
So if we go from, let's say we do this and then we go on next year to the possibility of an HR piece. You get a new employee that comes in, you put in all their information right there, and it feeds all of that information, cascades down to all the pieces instead of, and at some point, you're having the new employee put in their social security number, put in
Right.
their name, all of that, rather than having our staffing do
Right,
some of that.
at the different demonstrations that were done, they showed that you have, that the person would apply online, and when they put in that information, that essentially you click a button that says hired, and all of that feeds right into your system. So there's no copying it over, there's no transposition chances, and all of the documentations related to that hire process, all then become part of the record, as well as it enables you to do things like reviews that all stay with the person and whatnot. So there are a lot of cool features that I think would help streamline and make our documentation even better going forward if we were to then continue expanding to the other kinds of modules that they have. But we can only handle one thing at a time, so.
So certainly
Well, I understand
streamlining
that.
is one, but accuracy is the other.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
However, you know, the HRIS and the benefit administration is something that is seriously missing from an organization of this size. It's kind of a joke that we do it manually. You're not looking at much of an incremental bump. And when you look at, you're going to be in a perpetual state of implementation if you try and break these out and do these things separately, because there's redundancies between the systems. They're all shared fields. It's all one organic platform, and you're only going to turn on one little piece. So I think you should, at least in the RFP process, expand.
We could ask for it.
And ask for it. And from a budgetary standpoint,
It's not going to be huge numbers.
no, you're not doubling it.
So the problem with that is that when I spoke with Karen, she was fairly new at the time when we were going through this budget process, and she just tore her hair out and said, I can't possibly think that I'm going to implement this in the coming year. She said, give me a year. So that was part of the reason.
long has she been
Now, she might be more comfortable.
She's been here a year now,
in
this
a-
past January.
2 months.
Bingo.
You're essentially waiting a year and a half from today to put a shovel in the ground to start a 4-month implementation. So you're 2 years away
So she
from
might
automating.
be comfortable, and maybe we would come back. We can
From a
certainly-
compliance standpoint, I mean, it's
That piece
like,
is huge.
It is.
The ACA is huge.
I think it's one of those things, if we're going to make the move, because we already have an employee portal where they can get their paychecks or W-2s, and we can have sign-offs on that through Munis. If we're going to make the move, we should make the move instead of, you have to go here to get your paycheck, or you have to go here to request time off. You know, like I said before, we got to keep it simple.
It's easier anyway.
Well, all of those pieces would be in the piece.
Right.
Right,
That's
and
what I'm saying.
all of
It should
those
be
would be in
anticipated that
here.
there's gonna be more
Yeah,
expense.
it wouldn't be that
I
they'd
would
have to
say-
go someplace separate for it. It would all be in the same spot.
I would just
do it all.
Yeah, I just think you should seriously consider.
So you want to up this number?
Yeah.
So
I don't think we have a choice, really. I mean,
Okay.
why would you do
I'm more than happy to add that in there.
Well, as
quarter?
I
You're
said,
gonna do half
if
for a
the
quarter.
staff
Like
person
you
said she's not ready
4
to
months later, we're
do
going
that.
to try and add something
no.
else, and 4 months later, we're going to try and add something else? Like-
No, we would add it next year.
Yeah, but then by the
It would
time
be
you
a
add this,
module that we could
by the
add.
time you get where you want to be, the other stuff's outdated. I mean, it's,
We can certainly look into it
I
and
will
let you
add
know
it.
how much it would be.
I think it's important.
Sure.
We're done with that subject, I have another topic. So,
Sure.
Are we hopeful that funding might become available through maybe some sort of grant for a feasibility study regarding the police department?
Yes. The police department feasibility study was one that I had proposed last year with the police chief, and it was too new at that point to really, it didn't pass the muster. This year, it was going to be one of the recommendations. However, I have spoken with Senator Lesser, and his office is looking to possibly fund that at the state level. So it has pushed it back on the priorities for that reason alone.
They're looking at it, or they're planning on assisting us in getting
They
it
are
funded?
looking at it.
So there's no guarantee?
There are no promises.
Because the feasibility study is a long process. It's about an 8-month process.
Mm-hmm.
And in looking ahead on the capital request, we have over a $500,000 request or need for upgrading our current cells. So I'm kind of reluctant in waiting to see if we get the money to do that feasibility, because if we just look at that one cost alone, and that's been on Bruce's capital plan for many years, because of the inspections and the audits that take place in the police station, I don't want to waste that $500,000 and then find out our current station doesn't meet the needs today or into the future.
So when I'm planning the capital, I go with the recommendations of the department heads. And last year was the first year, and I'm kind of the one that had brought it to the forefront to the chief and to do this feasibility study. The cells was a separate item. I don't know where that falls in possibly getting something done, but the feasibility study was something that we felt it was not the highest priority with either department head.
Well, that was something that DPW normally handles because it's a building maintenance issue. So that's been on Bruce's plan. And my question is, are we not spending the money wisely? Are we going to wait and then spend over $500,000 to renovate the cells and then do a feasibility and find out it doesn't meet our current needs?
Well, I can speak a little bit upon that. The cell renovation project, I believe, was $550,000. It's been on my capital plan, I believe, for probably about 4 years. We put that in the back just because of the regional dispatch and regional lockup for the previous chief. So we haven't put it forward. We did notice the deficiencies based on the state's inspections every year, and obviously came up with a plan to correct these issues. But like I said, we haven't pulled it forward until recently, now that we're seeing that there probably will not be any regional lockup, and we'll be presenting that moving forward. And then speaking with Jeff last year, we did put on the capital plan to do a feasibility study. I ran some numbers, and based on Jeff's recommendation also, to do an expansion project up at the police station also.
So that $538,000 is the amount?
For the cell.
For the cells. That's on the plan for next year?
No. No, it's not.
So it's not a state mandate? It's a
The cells?
recommendation?
So
I'm not understanding the question, Tom.
If I understand correctly, Tom?
There's violations and there's recommendations.
So let me answer the question. So I've spoken with the chief about it. If we are making progress toward doing something, then we are meeting what the state will look at as far as we're working toward it. And we have done small improvements.
Absolutely,
So,
within our budget.
yeah.
And the fact
So
is,
we are-
as long as, if we're pursuing other measures, like a
And they're
feasibility
aware of
study,
that.
and they're aware of that, then
Correct.
it sort of meets that requirement that we're looking to modify the whole thing.
And absolutely, and like you said, now that we know we're not doing the regional lockup, we want to do a feasibility study, we have more officers coming in. I guess it'd be prudent, like you said, to do the feasibility study, and then obviously come up with an overall plan.
Exactly.
But like you said, when we initially came up with the cell renovation project, it was obviously because of those violations. We didn't think it was necessary to move that forward at that time because there were so many moving parts.
At that time, we were doing the regional lockup.
Right. So,
And we still
like you
do
said, we
some.
finally, I think, are coming up with a substantial plan moving forward between officers, and things have been kind of a little bit crazy,
A lot of
so.
moving parts here.
Yeah.
Well, with a regional lockup, you might find out after doing the study that you don't need the same number of cells that we currently have, which would take that numbered south.
And we've gone into an agreement on regional lockup, so.
And we do address, like I said, even with Jeff's recommendation, we do get violations on a yearly basis. We typically try to do at least 2 cell repairs per year based on the cost. Like I said, for a single toilet in one of those cells is about $3,000. So $6,000 right off the bat during the summer, which we'll be doing this year. There's suicide issues when it comes to the bar widths, some of the ventilation screens and everything else. So we do what we can within our budget, our operational side. So like
But
you
we're
said, they
covered
haven't shut us
talking
down
to
yet.
Eric, right? As long as we're in discussions with Eric.
And we do, and Jeff communicates. I've actually got a response from him today, and, you know, and they're totally understanding upon what we're doing, and at least we're making baby steps towards fixing the problem.
Okay. Is a lockup something we could share with another town as opposed to regional, like we're doing with the dispatch?
You can,
In other words, buff up one of the facilities, make it nicer, a little bigger, and then...
in crisis times, we can share a facility, sure. Any kind of manpower that's needed to watch that person would be the responsibility of the sending town. As far as the Sheriff Kochi has reached out and put a program together this year. When he became, one of his campaign promises was to make the regional lockup. So he's done that, and we're able to get some of the people that were spending time in our cells out to the jail. Well, that's their job, to watch prisoners and monitor them. But it doesn't negate the fact that we still have the liability. Once we put somebody in a cell, there's always that liability, whether it's for 10 minutes or 10 hours. Not everybody gets their opportunity to get released. We are under certain guidelines as far as the jail won't take anybody if they have no bail put on them, but they're just a clerk's fee, and they don't meet the clerk's fee because they don't have the money. They end up staying in our custody. So just to kind of wrap up what you're talking about, violations have to be fixed. They're not just a liability, they're violations mandated by the state that you come up with a plan to fix it or else. Recommendations and observations are stuff that we work towards complying with the state. They will put you on notice if there's a recommendation or a violation, an observation that was not fixed and it resulted in some kind of injury in the cell. They will put people on notice that those observations and recommendations were made to the town. What you do with them is up to you. We are moving forward to reduce the risk of the observation and the recommendations. So it's a yearly thing. As far as the $500,000, would it be prudent to spend $500,000? That was a number that we came up back before I took office. I don't think it's prudent to spend $500,000 to renovate the cells since they're spending less time on them, but although we do need to bring the ones that we are using up to standards. With all that said, you wrap in the feasibility, that angle of the whole thing, and how we move forward, and is that money that we allocate maybe for the cells better off towards expansion. So I'll just leave it at that.
And modernization of the whole.
It's a 24/7 operation. It's not, you know, the schools are probably the next most used buildings in town, but we're 24/7. The carpets get walked on 24 hours a day, the water and all that stuff goes on and on and on. So we're just looking at moving that forward to make sure the future growth of the town is met with a building that was built in '74 with some updated technology along the years. So hopefully, however that shapes out when we move forward, it saves the town some money, but also meets the needs that we have to make it happen for the town.
So there's money in the budget for this year to make some of those changes?
Yes, we do minor changes based on, like you said, our budget. So.
And the council has been so supportive of so many of the initiatives that we're taking that we have to keep in mind we can't do them all in the first 2 years. So, you know, we're doing layers, and you all are taking huge steps to expect to do all that we need to get done. There's a lot of catching up to do.
So to wrap that up, our cells are what they are. One of them's out of order right now. So on the male side, we have 3 that are in order, 1 that's out of order. Are there going to be a need where we have to hold more than one male per cell? Absolutely, we might utilize 2 cells. We've got to be prepared for that. Is it a daily occurrence? Not at once probably, but during the course of the day, we might have people coming and going, but are they going to occupy the cell area altogether? Well, there's times where we do make multiple arrests in one incident, and they have to be, obviously they're put in separate cells. So even though I think we can, what I'm trying to say is I think we can meet the obligation to the state without ripping the whole thing apart and going crazy, because their time in there is somewhat limited, but we still need to have that that cell up to best possible standards that the state expects. So.
Thanks, Jim.
That answers your questions, Tom?
It does.
Mike, did you have one?
I do have a question with the cruisers, and my question is, there's 2 parts to it. One is, initially there was a request for 3 cruisers, and that was changed to 2.
Correct.
With this regional dispatch looking like it's going to be a go, with Hamden, and we're going to free up an officer to be on the road, do we have enough road cars to put that officer in a car? Or are we going to be using our backup cars?
The third request, if I recall correctly, and I'm not looking in the budget, but was to replace the chief's car.
Well, we gave the town manager 3 options, 3 cruisers. 1 would involve a new cruiser for the chief. The last one is 2012. But with that in mind, it was set to be reallocated throughout the other town department. IT was looking at possible, his vehicle was getting old. So as usually what we do when we get new cruisers in our capital planning, we pass them down to some of the other departments that are in need of a vehicle that doesn't need to be driven a lot of miles or hard miles every day, but it still has a value more so than in trading it in. So we're looking at the needs of possibly IT. Bruce has reached out to me. He's looking at some wheels. We thought that maybe this is a good way to meet the needs. The cars that they usually get are in pretty good shape.
So it's not patrol.
They're just got some hard miles on them, but a lot of miles. But for the most part, they're transportation.
I just wanted to make sure, Chief, that if we free up an officer from dispatch, we have a cruiser to put him in. Otherwise, we're not following.
Right, we will have the extra person on the road with a vehicle now, and as we prepare also for the fleet, we also prepare for accidents, breakdowns, et cetera, that are out of our control to some degree, and having the necessary reserve vehicles would be helpful in making that happen. Okay. We have training, we use it for training, transportation, et cetera, stuff like that. So, and I just say that these numbers this year, moving forward will be less because we now got our cars up to the equipment we've had in the past thanks to your capital funding in the past. So some of the equipment will be dropping off and we're just looking for new wheels in the future when that comes around, not so much as equipment. So these numbers are going to fall off hopefully in the years to come.
Just as a point of note, in the notes you have, it appears, and I know it says appears, that we have 2 cruisers one year and 1 the next. That's an incorrect statement. It's always been 2 cruisers every year except for 1 year. The Board of Selectmen changed it to 1. So it's always been 2 to keep the police current with their fleet so that we don't have any issues with cars not being available.
I believe in that same philosophy, that our fleet for both Public Works and police and fire, or whoever needs vehicles, that you don't wait until they're all falling apart. And both of these gentlemen, I'm sure, can swear that that's been my philosophy so far, and it goes back to where I was before, that we used to sort of cheap out on our fleet of police cruisers, and it was 1, 1, 1, and when I came on board, it went to 2, 2, 3 when we needed to go to 3. Again, this year, as we're trying to sort of, contain some of the costs as best we can, to do 2 rather than 3, this was a year to do that. But there was a sensitivity to where that 3rd vehicle was, which was the chief's. So.
Okay. I just want to bring something up too. I don't believe we're adding another officer to the street where we're going to be running an extra car. Whether we have regional dispatch here or in Hamden, it's not putting an additional officer on a shift.
No, but you're taking the person that's on the desk right now that doesn't drive a vehicle but a telephone and puts them on the
Right,
road.
so we're covered with the vehicles the way they're situated right now.
Well, you're going to be putting more miles on the vehicles, and don't forget they are 24/7 use. It's not like your personal vehicles where they might get parked when you go to work and you get in them after you get done with work, you go home and stuff like that. We rack up miles pretty quickly on our cars. I mean, that's an obvious, so.
Any other questions while these gentlemen are up here? We have the enterprise fund capital as well. Do you have any questions on that?
Sustaining. We're not going to talk about possible bonding? I don't know. We skip over bonding?
Yeah, well, we do the biggest projects to buy, and we told the high school that they could do their project, and we will wait to bond it until they get their answer back.
So we're going to approve the bonding conditional? Because they're not going to find out till what, November?
I think November.
Right, that's it.
Can we ask?
Sure.
Gordon, when are you going to find out about the MSBA? What would be the final?
On the high school
On the
statement
high
of
school
interest.
statement of
The high
interest.
school statement of interest, we should find out late October, early November, hopefully. If it's good news, if it's bad news, later November, early December. Seems to
So you get the good news first, so you know if you get past the other half a month, you're out?
Yeah.
All right.
So Gordon, just with some of these projects, in my understanding, even if you do get into that program, the length of time it takes before you actually complete a project. So are you looking to do these irregardless?
Are you talking
I'm talking about your possible bonding and some of these numbers.
The ones we would be looking to do would be the maple shade interior, exterior door replacement. Obviously, we're already getting into the bidding process.
Right.
The crowd's thinning out now, so everybody.
Is that better, Don? Okay. So the items that we would be looking to, under possible bonding, would be the maple shade interior and exterior door replacement. We're in the MSBA process with the Meadowbrook replacement of doors and windows. Then the maple shade steam piping and insulation. Those would be the top priorities in terms of bonding projects for this year.
Okay. And these other two items that are on here for like...
That's the high school, right?
Right.
Right.
The high school items, you're going to just wait and see.
What we're hoping is that we get invited into the process, and then you'd be solving more than just those two items. You'd be looking to solve many different situations at the high school.
Kind of off the subject, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
Well, it's sort of on the subject, I guess.
Okay.
But is there a way that we can come up with, I mean, I know you probably got a better list already in your head that we do.
Right.
But between Bruce, I know there's whatever projects that we would need to do to, like, if we were not to get into that process, for some reason, what is the projects that we absolutely want to make sure that we get done?
At the high school?
If we had to buy them. Like, let's just say we threw in, if you looked at your 5-year capital plan, the original, the parking lot and everything else, something to consider is if we don't get into that project, we need to make sure that the school is up to snuff. So if we're not in there, that's the fifth year that we haven't got, fourth year that we haven't got an invite. We need to take a serious look at how we're going to fund that project and how we're going to fix what we have if we're not, I mean, it's got, at some point, we need to
similar to
make
what Chief
decision.
Alessio was saying, every year we take on smaller projects. Last year, actually, it was a capital project, but we replaced 3 electrical panels.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, for an example, if we don't get in November, let's just say.
Right.
We need to take a look.
I'm hopeful we're going to get in. I know.
I'm not hopeful. I'm trying to be realistic about it, that at some point, we're going to have to bite the bullet and fix what we got and not count on the state to give us money at some point, right? We're going to have to, you can only drag the process out so long.
Correct.
Where we're not fixing things and not getting money.
So I think that would be a discussion that we would probably want to have with the school committee and the town council.
Yeah, just throwing it out there like what.
Correct, in the fall, and then start to prioritize, because beyond the items that you have here for possible bonding, there are other issues that you would want to
Right,
look
which
at
that's,
that
I guess
5-year.
that's my question, is what are those issues? And I know there's some on the 5-year plan,
Most are on the 5-year plan.
right? There was I know the
Correct.
parking lot, and there's whatever. There's a whole bunch.
Right.
Right? And I forget the number. I had it at one time, it's like $25 million or something.
Right, I mean, so
Because we
here
also
you
don't
see,
wanna
you're looking at one area of the roof, really the entire.
$6 million for the whole roof.
Correct,
Right.
the entire roof
Yeah, I added
needs
that
to be
in.
replaced.
But, right, so
Right.
those are things like I think at some point we have to sit down and have a conversation about
Correct, I would agree with that.
as a contingency plan
Right.
for where we're
And I
going.
think the school committee, based on our last meeting with the town council, when we were talking specifically capital projects, I think they're in agreement, you know.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there for food for thought. I mean,
Sure.
November will be here before you know it.
Very quickly.
And it also doesn't make sense to keep bonding for small projects like every year versus, okay,
Big bond.
what
We
happens?
need $20 million, let's bond the whole 20
Creating a-
million.
Right.
and fix
Yeah,
it.
creating a
Which would be
contingency
why I would
plan.
recommend this year to stay on the other school projects rather than bond for a high school project.
Understood.
Which makes sense.
Right.
And we've been doing the smaller projects just to keep the building safe, like you said, the electrical panels, especially in the kitchen. We lost 2 or 3 breakers in that panel over the course of last year. So we're doing incremental little things just to keep the building safe and viable for the students, so.
Correct.
We
One of the
really need a
things-
good letter in December is what you're saying.
Yes, we need four good letters of support to our senators and our representatives, who then in turn could persuade MSBA.
The other people who do the
board of
work.
directors. But to Bruce's point, over the last 5-6 years, they've been up on the roof taking a look at, because one of the big areas where we have leaks are all the skylights. And so they reseal and redo.
Skylights.
10 per year.
10 per year.
You should just get
It's
that.
about 10 grand.
Can't you just buy that Flex Seal stuff and spray it?
Yeah, I wish.
The guy drives on a boat made of that stuff.
What happens if it drives away?
We tried to hire him, it wasn't available.
All right.
Oh, that's
Beat this
helpful.
budget to death.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Can we go back to orders?
Yeah, it's
No,
all-
we have the revolving funds. Just, it's a very,
All right, revolving funds it is.
so they're the second to the last page, so we're at the end.
Sure. Oh, yeah, right here.
So the first one is the solid waste disposal fund, revolving fund.
Do you want, Amy has been
Yes.
sitting here the whole time, so if you have any questions regarding the solid
Solid
waste
waste
or
or the
the
health department.
health department revolving funds? You want to come up?
It's fairly self-explanatory.
My first question, why are you still here?
Answer your question,
To take this last page.
Hey, you're in the same office, you should have her slide that to the front of the presentation.
So we should actually try to come up with a question to justify you sitting here all night, right?
If you don't, that's
You-
totally fine.
Going back to our conversation, this is not a question for Amy, but did you look into that discussion
I
that we
did.
had?
I had Sarah look into it,
Okay.
and it was approved by the council last year.
Yeah.
To add salaries to that.
At the May 23rd, 2017 meeting. If you pull up that agenda, the minutes from it, if you look, the presentation was attached to it, so it's the very last page, page 23 of that, and it shows that that change was approved then, and so that's why that's happening.
Anybody else? Tom, you got anything else for that one? Okay, thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Can we do the Sharps while I'm up here?
Sharps is good, right?
Sharps is good.
Thanks.
We're good.
So the next one is the Council on Aging. They already left a while ago.
Oh, yeah, we kicked her out, too.
It's too late for her.
So this revolving fund is very small now after we cleaned it up and said, you know, not everything belonged in there. So the 7,200 is really based on their current activity and what's going on. And then we have the last one, which is the recreation revolving. And as I mentioned previously, this is not one that needs approval by the town council, but to continue with transparency, we thought that it would be appropriate for all to be seen.
Besides, Donna, you fixed this whole thing, right?
She did fix
The
it.
revolving one, you did. That's why I'm trying to give you credit where it's due.
Oh,
that
yes, I fixed it.
It's fixed, right? Okay, we're good.
Thank you for fixing it.
It is truly a much better reflection of what the department has now than it was prior.
Yeah, I can't take credit, though. I mean, Sarah set it up for me. I just plugged in the numbers, did some research.
Thank you.
Well, it's fixed either way.
The two of us, we did it.
Yeah, we did.
Good.
I have a question with regards to the revolving funds. Is there a possibility of using 2 part-time employees rather than adding a full-time employee to the?
Oh, and so he's asking instead of your supplemental to the department, instead of doing a 1 full-time, do 2 part-time, which therefore could be paid out of the revolving account. And I didn't know if you've considered that.
I didn't consider that. I didn't realize that was an option.
Yep, so we could do that. So we can talk after this, but that's a good idea to see how we could make that work and impact with where the current fees are for those different programs to see whether we'd be able to get it to fit in.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, it looks like there's a substantial amount of money in there that could be used for that, so that it doesn't fall back to the taxpayers.
okay, thank you, good
Well, she
idea.
get two employees, so you can split it up a little bit.
Making sure they're not more than 19 hours.
I know, but honestly, this is the one
I was
time
trying to
I'm
make
going
you
to make
smile
an
just a
exception to
little.
the rec department.
You can't just do it for yourself, you know?
I'm just
Sure,
saying,
picking a favorite
it's
over
hard to
here, Joe.
find part-time people that are going to stay in the position for a long period of time. It doesn't necessarily work with the long-term objective and what you're trying to accomplish, and volunteers should be working with the kids, coaching, not doing administrative stuff. This is the one area where I'd say you probably need a body, a full FTE. Just my thought. It's not bad to look into it. I understand where Tom's coming from, makes a ton of sense, what he's suggesting, because the way, you can fund the position out of there, but
You could fund a full-time position as long as you do all the benefits as well. So,
No, not out of this one.
oh.
Falls
just out
under
of
a
the-
different section of the law.
No, this is
Sorry.
like E1/2 instead of F1/2.
You're very close. The other one's E1/2 and this one's D.
D and a half.
F1/2 is enterprise fund, so you were close, but you're paying attention.
got it.
Okay, so.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you for staying, Donna. I told her she could leave about 5 minutes ago. She got halfway out and said, revolving.
Now, do we have to do anything about the taser thing, right?
Yes.
We got to approve money for the taser.
That's the last, that's the last.
That's not for
The
this.
chief is here about.
No, I mean, the
That's
rest of
that's
it.
not budget, that's the agenda.
Yeah, so that's our last thing other than executive, if we have anything really.
We do have an executive session discussion.
Okay, as long as it doesn't involve our attorney.
We're not doing tasers?
I'll take it.
An hour ago.
We need to go to orders of the day.
Okay,
now
so
we
if
need to
you
go
have
back
no
to
other, yeah. No other
orders of the
questions on
day.
the budget?
But
No other questions on the budget?
Nope.
No. So we'll entertain a motion to go back into the orders of the day.
I'll move.
Second, third.
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we are on
Financial matters?
D1.
D1.
financial matters D1.
8D1.
Before I have a comment with regards to that. In 2017 budget process, we allocated funds for training within that capital request,
The,
and it was approved at town meeting.
So the problem with it is that the wording of what had been approved at town meeting just said tasers. It didn't say tasers and related training. So I can't use that money for there. So essentially that money will get returned to the general fund as being unspent because the capital only said taser. And that's the exact same amount that's being asked to come from free cash. So it will close out, it will become part of our free cash for fiscal 19, but therefore then the training has to be approved separately.
Was that in the warrant?
Net zero.
That was in the warrant?
Yeah, it just said just tasers, it didn't say tasers and training.
By the Board of Selectmen, right?
I know the
That's
discussion was, obviously, training comes with it, right? That was the discussion, I think.
Excuse me, I'm
We just
sorry.
didn't word it.
There's no instruction manual?
There's some good videos out there, though, Jeff. Have you seen those?
You just go through Big Y and have them try it out.
That's why we're trying really hard to be very clear on these other ones, purchase and equip of cruiser, things like that, so then we don't run into
So what
this
happens to
issue.
the funds that were approved?
They are closed out and being returned to the general fund and become part of free cash.
Okay, so the money's in there?
Yes, the money is in there, it's just I can't legally spend from there, and that's why we're asking for free
We're
cash.
netting out at zero.
All right, so I'm gonna, right at this minute, I'm going to entertain a motion to fund the taser training for the police department in an amount not to exceed $10,000 from free cash.
So moved.
Second.
Move to second, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Nice speed, moving second.
Now I'm going to make a motion to move into executive session to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate per Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Number 6. As council president, I declare that open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the public body.
To return to open
To
session.
session only to adjourn.
Right. So moved.
Second.
Take a roll call vote.
All in favor, right? Go, everybody. O'Connell,
O'Connor, aye.
Federici, aye.
Aye.
Anderson, aye.
Hill, aye.
Aye.